Welcome 32 and everybody. This is another episode of Beyond the Tape brought to you by 32 beat writers. TJ Wingert here with you. And today I'm joined by a very special guest fresh off of his trip and his weekend down in Indy, really the whole almost week down in Indy doing work for the PFF Pro Football Show and as well as the PFF College Football Show. I am pleasured to be joined by the one and the only Max Chadwick. Max, how's it going, man? Appreciate you taking some time.
Of course, TJ. Anytime, dude. It was great meeting you down in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, and it's cool to be looking up with you again and doing an episode together.
Yeah. A quick anecdote before we jump into the mock, because I know that's what everyone's here for. Yeah, you were actually one of the first people that we got to talk to at the Senior Bowl, and I was so starstruck seeing, my PFF guys there that I then ignored the fact that Dalton was standing two people to your left. Connor Rogers is standing directly to my right. And
ignore Dalton as much as possible is my mantra in life, honestly. So I think you did perfect in there.
Yeah. And then I somehow don't notice Connor Rogers directly to my right. And then of course Trev shows up in this sick retro Florida thing where you can't miss him. So you guys were super nice down there. I really appreciate you the warm response that we got from y'all, especially first time there for me. So I really appreciated it.
No, dude, anytime, man. I was super cool meeting you. I've personally, we never really talked to that many fans of the show before, so it was cool. You recognizing Eli honestly made my year. That to me was the coolest part. Eli, who's always behind in the studio, and he's always only a voice only, the voice of God. We always joke about.
Yeah, literally.
Even recognizing the voice of Eli, that to me was the coolest part of all. I was like, dude, that's awesome. That even Eli is getting the love there.
Which, I mean, if you're a fan of a podcast, that's got to be a glorifying experience. You've listened to it so much that you know the producer, what he sounds like, and then Eli sticks out his hand. He's like, "I'm Eli," and I was like, "Oh, I know." I know that voice anywhere, my man. So awesome. Well, Max, you've been kind enough to give us a couple, a little bit of your time. We're gonna run through a 2-round mock draft post combine edition. You were there, boots on the ground, so I want to hear all the tea. I want to hear all the rumors. And especially here at the top of the draft for the quarterbacks, I feel like we're going to kind of hit on that right away. But big time risers, I'd love to hear who you thought, hey, this guy crushed. This guy's going to be, moving up half a round because of that, or an entire round because of that. And we can also kind of hit on some followers. But odds are, if you're following at the combine, you may not be in the first 64 picks. But we got to hit on that as we go all throughout. You're going to be taking the odds because, one, you're my guest. So I have to let you have the honors of starting us off. But also, the draft kind of starts at 1, which, that's a statement of the day. But I'd love to know from your standpoint, it kind of felt like waves of Indianapolis where it starts out and, all right, Abdul Carter's going to be the number 1 pick. But then kind of by the end of the weekend, it felt like, I don't know, it might be Cam Ward. And also you have the Giants, Matt Stafford saga. I'll toss it to you. You have the number 1 overall pick. What do you want to do here?
Yeah, it's tough. I genuinely have no idea. Last year at the combine, you knew Caleb would go 1 and some combination of Drake May and Jaden Daniels would go 2 and 3. And then at 4 would guarantee to be Marvin Harrison Jr. And really, the draft started at 5, in my opinion, last year. Draft legit starts at number 1 overall here, like you said. It's weird. I do think quarterback's definitely in play. I don't think they want to redo the Will Levis thing. But also at the same time, I don't know which quarterback they prefer. Rand Carthen, there's rumors that he liked Cam Ward, but obviously he's no longer the GM there. And then everyone's assuming Cam Ward will be the first quarterback taken. But, at least from his podium, Brian Callahan, everything he talks about what he looks for in a quarterback, it seems to favor Shedeur Sanders. He said he looks for 3 things. He looks for accuracy, decision-making, and timing. Those are the 3 things that make up Shedeur Sanders as a prospect. And even in a previous interview, he even compared Shedeur Sanders to Joe Burrow, who he coached as the offensive coordinator with the Bengals. So I don't think Shedeur is out of the question at number 1 overall either. So what I will do, because I don't think they're going to take – I don't know who they would prefer at quarterback at number 1. I do know they like Abdul Carter, and I do know with Harold Landry potentially getting traded away, they have a massive needed edge defender. So I do think Carter, for me at least right now, might be the favorite to go number 1. So I'll go with him here.
All right, we're gonna have the Titans stick and pick, going Abdul Carter number 1 overall. If anybody trades up, are you thinking the Giants as well? It feels like that's kind of the consensus around the league right now.
I think either team that plays in MetLife. I think Giants and even the Jets. I think I've heard a lot of stuff about them potentially trading up to get their guy because obviously Rodgers is out the door now, and they're right now stuck with Tyrod Taylor or Jordan Travis as their quarterback. So I think Aaron Glenn wants to get that fixed pretty quickly. If he likes the guy in this class, I could see them trading up to number 1 too. So the Raiders even could trade up to number 1 overall if they really fall in love with the quarterback. Yeah, I think honestly, and there might be a team that falls in love with Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter or somebody else, right? So it's not even the trading up for a quarterback either. It's like I said, this number 1 pick, I genuinely have no idea what's going to happen on draft night.
Well, yeah, and then because of it being a weaker quarterback class, I almost wonder how much that correlates to the trade value too, right? Like moving up to 1 last year, even if you're Washington at 2, that was going to be pricey.
Right.
This year, I almost wonder if the Titans and the Giants, if they're talking, hey, it's like, you know what? We have 2 top 100 picks. You give us a third this year, third next year. Let's go ahead and make this happen and work for both of us. I do wonder how much that affects the price of the pick per se. But Abdul Carter, number 1, I am very intrigued by that. And kind of talking about, the QB situation, and it felt like specifically with Shedeur Sanders, you could have found a report, no matter how you feel about him, to back up what you in your consensus is on him or your thoughts on him are. And like case in point, I was kind of preparing you to go Cam Ward or trade out of this. So now I'm like scrambling here. I know what they're going to do, or at least what I'm going to do here. But I saw Dan Graziano reporting that he doesn't know where the lean in the room is for Cleveland, Shedeur versus Cam. But he kind of made it seem like in his report with Jeremy Fowler that even if one goes 1, they're willing to take a guy 2. And I quote tweeted that. So, definitely give me a follow on X if you're not already. But I found that to be an interesting part of that report. So I was like, man, this is not really the class to have guys go 1, 2. But God, is like necessity going to come out of these 2 teams and make it happen? Doesn't have to be the case here with Cam Ward still on the board. I'm going to go Cam Ward here, number 2 overall for the Browns. He's my quarterback 1. I know you're a Shedeur guy, QB1. I think there is something to like about both of them. And if we're honest with ourselves, both of them are probably just going to be good starters. Like Cam Ward probably has the higher perceived ceiling, but takes more work to get there. It's a longer shot that he gets there too. But I look at, Jordan Love kind of comparison for Cam Ward, kind of a Geno Smith-esque comparison for Shedeur Sanders. So you're looking at 2 guys who are in and around QB 10 to 16, right now, if you were to stack them up. So I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just a question of how high can these guys go. I will say the big thing that would be a win here in my eyes for Cam Ward going to Cleveland is the ability to throw through that wind. And part of the reason I want to give you the odds is you're a fellow Steelers fan. So AFC North football just as much as I do. And throwing through wind, snow, hell, the Steelers-Browns first matchup on Thursday Night Football, like the Winter Wonderland game, you need a guy who can kind of play through those situations. Big Ben, Joe Flacco, that ilk. So I do think Cam Ward really kind of fits and checks that box there for the Browns.
I think so too, and I do prefer Shedeur as QB1 in this draft, and I think for Tennessee especially, like I think that fits them. But like, legitimately, it's a coin flip. Like, if you have Cam as QB1, I completely understand. Like I said, it's a high floor versus a high ceiling argument, right? I think Cam certainly got a lot better this past year at Miami, but at least in Washington State and even in Cardinal Ward, he was a bit of a gunslinger. Shedeur has never been that, even though he's been relied on completely at Colorado, right? He is the entirety of Colorado's offense, and yet he still plays very safe. He never forces it, which it's really surprising when he needs to be the hero for Colorado every single game. And he is the hero while he also being a very, very safe quarterback as well. That's what I really like about him. And I think he diagnoses defenses on an NFL level already. I don't know if Cam is quite on that level yet. So, yeah, I think it's a great point. I think Cam at number 2. I was a little surprised that Adam Schefter went on a podcast, forgot which one, but he said that, the thing, this NFL draft is wide open, but the thing I'm most confident in is the Browns taking a quarterback at number 2. That kind of shocked all of us because we were like, we don't know what the Cleveland's going to do at number 2. So the fact that, like you said, there's been other reports too that say that they're going to take a quarterback. I'm with you. I think Cam Ward, if he's on the board there, is probably going to be the pick.
Yeah, what's going to get interesting is if Ward's gone, is that Graziano or is that just his speculation? Will they, won't they? I have a hard time thinking this is the year where 2 quarterbacks go back-to-back 1-2. The other thing I really want to hit on real quick with Tennessee, I seriously think there's a shot Derek Carr ends up becoming the Titans quarterback. He's got a background overlapping with Callahan when they were both in Vegas. And I could see a world where, a 4th-round pick makes that work for both sides. And I think an added benefit to that if you're Tennessee, even if you're drafting a guy in 2026 like your guy Drew Aller or a Garrett Nussmeier or let's say Arch Manning's in that draft, you still have Derek Carr around, so you don't have to start that guy right away in 2026. So I think that trade kind of works out twofold. I know Mickey Loomis has said Derek Carr's their starter, but this is right around that time of the year where everyone's starter, if you're already on the roster.
That's why I do like while it is wide open in the NFL draft right now, we are going to find out a lot in the next couple of weeks once free agency gets going. Because then we will figure out, okay, because I do not think Brian Callahan is going to put up with another year of Will Levis. Like I think he was so fed up with, and obviously every single time he's at the podium, they say, what do you look for in a quarterback? He basically says the opposite of Will Levis, right? So I think that I don't think he's going to put up another year of him. So if they don't sign a big name quarterback like a Sam Darnold or maybe get a Derek Carr, like you said, or Russell Wilson, at least something at the stopgap. Then I think, okay, number 1 overall, Abdul Carter, I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're going to take a quarterback. But if they do sign someone like that, then you can say, okay, either they're going to trade out of the pick or they're going to take Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, number 1 overall. So I do, like I said, I have no idea what's going to happen right now. But once free agency gets going, then we will have a better idea of what these teams at the top are going to do.
A clear picture for sure. And, it's funny you say that. And real quick, I know I'm not trying to make you stay all day, and we're only 2 picks into this. I tend to be a little long-winded. But what's funny when you talk about Callahan and his background, and it's almost like if you could describe like decision-making on 0 to 10, and you were used names instead, it would probably be Will Levis to Joe Burrow. So it's just amazing that over 2 years he's gone from one extreme to the other. But anyways, I give it to you now with the New York Giants at the clock at pick number 3.
They have to take Shedeur Sanders. This is one, and again, this is another thing. If free agency happens, we knew they were in on Matthew Stafford. That obviously did not happen. If they get a Sam Darnold, if they get even, like I said, a Russell Wilson or something, Justin Fields, even though it sounds like he's going to be in Pittsburgh, then we'll talk about something else maybe. But if they don't figure it out and they don't get anyone, I mean, Joe Shane and Brian Dable are as good as gone. And
exactly.
Yeah, those are 2 guys that are completely in job preservation mode right now because the owner just flat out came out and said, it's now or never. You're going to get fired next year if you don't fix this. And you have to fix this. And the number one thing I want you to do is get a quarterback. So if they don't sign anyone, it's guaranteed that Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders is going to be a Giant. And by what I mean by that is like, I think they're going to trade out. Like TJ, I actually just saw a report, or at least the betting odds. Betting odds right now, the Titans and the Giants have these same odds to pick the first overall pick in the draft.
Yeah,
which is crazy considering the Titans have actually do have the first pick. They think it's just as likely that the Giants are going to be picking number 1 than the Titans. Because, like I said, if they don't sign a quarterback, they are guaranteed have to take one of those 2 guys, or else or else Shane and Dave are going to get fired. And obviously, those are 2 guys that you never want to be coaching or general managing in the mindset of if I need to do this or else I will get fired. But that's unfortunately where they are right now. So I think with Shedeur Sanders on the board, I'm operating under the principle that they won't sign a veteran quarterback in free agency or trade for one or anything like that. And of course, we knew at the Shrine Bowl too. We saw Shedeur was getting kind of cozy up with Brian Dable there. I think they really do like Shedeur Sanders. Like I said, I have him QB1 in this draft, so I would love this pick for the Giants. And it's not only a pick that I would like them to make; it's a pick they have to make at number 3.
Yeah, and talking about the Shrine Bowl, as Trevor Sickma's been putting it, the dap heard around the world. I mean, that is just fantastic. And I mean, he'd be stepping into an environment that, like, unfortunately, is a little similar, right? Like the offensive line, a little shaky, not the best run game. As much as I like Tyro and Tracy, but you still have Malik Neighbors there, so you still have a dynamic threat. It's actually a situation that lines up pretty closely to what he had at Colorado.
Right.
And he's also getting a good, I've probably cooled on where I'm at with Brian Dable as a head coach. I still think he's a good offensive mind, but as a head coach, maybe my opinions have changed over the last couple of years. But nevertheless, you are getting a good offensive mind, kind of running the show there for Shedeur Sanders, which hopefully makes it that much easier and a smoother transition. And again, I think you're getting a solid guy. Like, I just don't know if you're going to get like all world beater. Yeah. And one last thing, talking about like the Matt Stafford of it all. I almost wonder, and kind of the number 1 overall pick, I have a hard time thinking the next mock I do, I will have them moving up to 1 just because I think they're going to do it. And I wonder if they're almost putting into the equation what they would have expensed for a Matt Stafford trade. Like, I almost wonder if Joe Shane and the Mara family, they're looking at it like, well, we were going to give up these picks anyway for Stafford, so throw it in a deal for number 1.
Yeah.
And again, the Titans are also desperate too, only 2 top 100 picks. I wonder if you can kind of finesse that a little bit. But anyways, that takes us to the Patriots here at 4, man. And I've been looking for a mock where I can get Mason Graham to the Patriots because I think that'd be a fantastic fit. So I didn't want to shout that out here. But in this spot, as much as I have been, Travis Hunter, full-time corner, I've been saying that since last August, pretty much this whole cycle since really getting into the class. To me, I see full-time corner with like specialized receiver role, let him moonlight there and use him on third downs and red zone. But in this situation, I'd be willing to forego the corner play of it all. He's still a special receiver. I have Ted McMillan still as my wide receiver 1, but it's pretty thin. And really the difference between him and Ted at wide receiver 1 and 2 versus receiver 2 and 3 is a bigger gap from the 2 to 3 standpoint. So he's special from both sides of the ball. Love what he can do. I think if he plays receiver full time, maybe we'd like to see him get up to like 190, 195, ideally. But it's kind of scary to think about how good of a receiver he could be if that's his full-time job at the next level. Because right now he's kind of moonlighting both. He's not every blocking rep, let's just say, looks, 100% for Travis Hunter on the offensive side of the ball. And how could you, And like, you got the great clip of him at the combine. Are you going to do your special teams? Nah, I've got 2 jobs. I'm good. That's fantastic. And, kind of to that point, I think in this situation, you play him full-time receiver, you could probably still get some corner value out of him, but you got Christian Gonzalez on that side of the ball. Mike Vrabel's going to coach up that side of the unit as well, or that side of the ball as well. I think you let him play receiver one and then figure out what you can get out of Javon Baker and Jalen Polk in their year two.
Dude, I love it. The generational label gets thrown around for all the time and undeservingly. Like, Abdul Carter, as much as good as he is, he's not a generational edge rusher. Sure. Ginty, you can make an argument, but I think Bijan and Saquon are on that level. And obviously both those guys came within the last 7 years or so. The only one that's deserving of generational label is Travis Hunter. I think he is easily the best football player in this draft. I honestly would try him at both, not full time, but like you said, I'd probably have him as starting corner that plays, 20 snaps or so at receiver a game, which is, if you do that and he's even a good player at both, he is quite easily the most valuable non-quarterback in the NFL by a mile. And if you have that on a rookie deal, like, he could be worth, like, he could be playing as well and be as valuable as like a $25 million a year receiver and a $15 million a year corner. And like that, it's a $40 million player that you have for what, like $5 million a year or $6 million a year on a rookie deal, right? So he's the best player in this draft. I think he's easily the best non-quarterback in this draft. I didn't take him at number 1 overall because I don't think Tennessee will do that. But I personally, it'd be really, really hard for me as a general manager to not take him as the first non-quarterback in this draft, and not take him as the first overall pick, honestly, in this draft. I think he's that special of a football player. And I think he's generational. I think he's the greatest two-way player of all time. I really do. I think as time goes on and we kind of forget, because everyone was kind of pitted against each other with Ginty versus Hunter. And if you rooted for Ginty, if you wanted Ginty to win the Heisman, you try to take down Hunter. If you wanted Hunter to win the Heisman, you take down Ginty. In like 10 years or so, we're gonna look back and be like, dude, what those two did that year was so freaking unbelievable. And I think Hunter is one of the greatest players we've ever seen in college football. I really do believe that. So I love that pick, and I think if he is there at number 4 overall, I would do the same exact thing from New England. I would be really hard pressed to draft anyone else than Travis Hunter.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I think he plays full-time corner, but this is just one of the few landing spots where it's like, you know what? Let's let the receiver thing. Let's make this happen.
It's so crazy. Like, sorry to interrupt, but I was just gonna say, like, it's so crazy to you. Like, he could be the number 1 receiver, and then God forbid Christian Gonzalez goes down with a high ankle sprain out for 6 weeks. You're like, all right, Travis, you know what? Screw it. We've got to have you play corner. Like, that's just like, to have that kind of versatility is just so ridiculous. You basically save a roster spot by having Travis Hunter in your team, right? So that it's like that too, where it's like, okay, even if you play him one way, even because I don't think he will do that, but even if you only play him at one position, if an injury happens to the other side of the ball at that position, you could be like, all right, Travis, we're kind of good at receiver here. We got some other guys we like. You got to go play corner for a few weeks while Christian gets better with his injury, right? So that kind of versatility, man, is just ridiculously rare, and not even rare. It's never been seen before. So I just think that's what makes him the best player in this draft, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'm lockstep with you there. You're talking about if you can get him at 2 spots, I don't see, like, what do you do with wins above replacement? Like, that's just like absurd. You're getting to Shohei Ohtani territory. Right. If you don't think he can do 2 ways, and you're talking about one guy, one spot, I might lean Carter there. But I agree with you too on the generational side. Like, Carter's not Chase Young, and as much as like Chase Young hasn't been awesome as a pro, but he's not Chase Young, he's not Nick Bosa, and what happened in that next level is what it is. But as a prospect, he's just not quite there. Had he had a second year at Penn State playing on the edge, maybe we could say that. But
and like and people need to understand, like, generation is 20 years, right? Like around 20 years. So like, okay, are you saying Abdul Carter is the best edge we've seen in 20 years? He's not. Now I know it's people don't use it that way. I understand. It's like, oh, it's more of like the last 5 or so years. Even then, it's like, like I said, Chase Young was a better prospect, I thought, than Abdul Carter coming out of college. We've got other edge rushers that were amazing. Like Aiden Hutchinson was unbelievable, and Abdul definitely has an argument with Aiden Hutchinson, but like, I don't know. I don't think he's like that tier of like, oh, I thought Myles Garrett was unbelievable. Guys like that. I don't think he's on that level. But he is certainly one of the better ones. But like I said, I mean, we've never ever seen Travis Hunter before. We've like, people are like, oh, Charles Woodson had like what, 300 receiving yards. It's not like, this is what we've never seen this level before. Champ Bailey never did this at Georgia either. So like I said, he's easily the greatest 2-way player of all time. And even the fact that we're even talking about him playing 2 ways in the NFL is just like, bro, what are we even doing here? Like, he is that special of a football player.
No doubt about it. And one last point before we let you get on with the Jacksonville Jaguars here at number 5. I think the other argument that maybe hasn't been talked about a whole lot yet is, people will talk about Travis Hunter. He should want to play receiver because look at what guys in that market are doing. By that same logic, though, teams could look at it the same way and say, well, instead of having to pay for an elite receiver at $30+ million a year, we could just draft a guy in Travis Hunter, and that might be more net cap savings because the pick is valued at whatever the pick is valued at. And if you're playing a receiver and that's a $30 million a year position versus corners of 20, I wonder if that argument ultimately comes full circle and teams look at it as there's more cap savings with him at receiver than there would be using a first round pick at corner. I do wonder if that's the thing, but I'm with you. Play him both spots and be happy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll move on to Jacksonville after this, but I was gonna say, like, dude, like if like I said, the only way I could see him doing both full time, I don't think he could play both legitimately full time. I could see him being a starting corner, packages at receiver. And you might think, okay, well, financially it doesn't make sense. Actually, it does because you're still paying him as a receiver. Like once his second contract comes up, you could legit be arguing Travis Hunter being worth $50 million a year, if not more. Right. 100%. So like that's the kind of stuff we're talking about here is like, okay, yeah, he's a full-time corner and corners are paid less than receivers, but none of the corners in the NFL are also playing receiver 20 snaps a game and putting up, he's probably going to put up like, even at 20 snaps a game, he might put up 700, 800 yards, right? So like, it's that kind of versatility. Like he is going to be worth legitimately like $40 to $50 million a year. He should be, I mean, unless it doesn't work out and he can only play one, I think he might be the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL once his second contract comes up. But Jacksonville at number 5. This is another spot where Travis Hunter's on the board. I'm sprinting that card in. But at number 5, I will take Mason Graham. Now, him coming in at 296 wasn't great. I actually have some sources very close to Mason Graham that told me that he's played at 320 as a sophomore, which is why his listed weight at Michigan was 320. He played at 315 as a junior because his snap count went up by like 100. And while he was training, he obviously to put up better times and verticals and all that, you lose weight to impress scouts because that's how it works. And he was down to like 300. Then he bruised his heel, and which is why he was not able to participate at the combine. So it wasn't like he didn't want to do the combine. He actually was going to do it. Last second, he bruised his heel, could not do it. And then because of the injury and because of him going through all these interviews and stuff like that, he lost another 5 pounds and why he was at 295. So his actual playing weight is 315, at least from what it was this past year. It's not actually 295. So I think that's an important context to keep in mind. And I think anyone who's looking at Mason Graham is saying he's not one of the top picks in the draft. Like, I was talking to some people when the listed weight came out. It was like, 295. Oh, Mason Graham might fall out of the top 15 now. I was like, dude, what are we talking about here, man? Like, he is like easily a blue chip talent in this draft. I think he's on the same level of Jalen Carter and Quentin Williams as a prospect coming out. Each of those guys were top 10 picks. And if Carter didn't have any off-field issues, he would have been a top 5 pick, just like Quentin Williams. I think Mason Graham is a special football player, man. And like I said, the weight at the combine, it means nothing to me, honestly. I still think he's a special talent. And Jacksonville, who needs help at D tackle, you get him alongside Josh Hines-Allen and Trayvon Walker and guys like that, and Rick Armstead on that defensive line. I mean, that's a loaded defensive line all of a sudden. So I would love Travis Hunter here at number 5, but I think Mason Graham is a very, very nice consolation prize. All
right, I lied to you. I have 2 more thoughts about Travis Hunter, and then we'll come back to this pick right here. Talking about his versatility, the Rams. I always think about the Rams. This last year, if they could have had a Travis Hunter, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp hurt to start the year, play him at receiver. Down the stretch, you need a corner, boom, plug him in there. If only we could have made that happen. Yeah. Also, to your point, the 30 for 30 on this Heisman race is just going to be fantastic. I cannot wait for the 2024 Heisman race, 30 for 30. Anyways, even to your point about Mason Graham and his weight, I had in my notes, it looks 305. I didn't think 320 was a thing, so it's interesting that you say 315. But honestly, anything 305, 315, with how he plays, I'm great with it. And it's also interesting to hear you talk about, he might fall out of the top 15. Did anybody hear what the new Jags GM was saying at the combine? Like, doesn't care about measurables. He just wants to draft good football players. He's all about the intangibles, So James Gladstone's going to jump all over this. He basically just put up a sign saying, you give me Mason Graham, I'm taking him. And to your point, that D-line would be loaded with him on it.
Oh, my God, dude. It'd be so good. I honestly, for Jacksonville, I think it's Travis Hunter by a mile at number 1 for Jacksonville. Right. And then at 2 and 3, honestly, for me, and this might be a hot take, I think it's both Michigan guys. I think Mason Graham, Will Johnson. Those are the 2 guys. And I know Will Johnson, for whatever reason, is falling down boards too. I think it's just draft fatigue at this point because he's been elite for 3 years. I know injuries kind of bugged him for the last couple of years, but he's an unbelievable player. So that, to me, those are the 2 guys after Travis Hunter. So I would take Mason Graham here, but Will Johnson is very much in the mix too for me at number 5.
I would throw Will Campbell in there, especially depending on what happens with Brandon Scherff. I could see a world where if Graham is gone at 4 and Hunter's gone, that could be their third potential option, him
Sure.
or Will Johnson. And Will Johnson kind of has the Derek Stingley Jr. thing going on where, you look at a year of tape and you're like, this is a future top 5 pick. Like, this guy's awesome. And then you look at some of the other years and you're like, it's okay. But corner is kind of one of those positions where, you have a year of elite play. That's kind of what matters most. It's a variance position. If you can get to that height, that's what matters most to me. So I'm with you on that. Anyways, Raiders here at 6. I'm going to go Ashton Jeanty. I've done this in a handful of mocks, and I don't normally love running back first round, but Jeanty is one of my 4 blue chippers this year with Mason Graham, Abdul Carter, and Travis Hunter. And I do think it's not like Najee Harris going to the Steelers. That gives me nightmares thinking back to that. And it's not because of Najee. He's a great guy, and I wish he could have had a better situation for success. But we drafted a running back trying to fix a running game when the offensive line was the clear issue. Vegas actually has a pretty good offensive line. Jackson Powers-Johnson was, actually my top ranked or top rated center prospect since I've started doing this in 2018. So big JPJ guy. And I think, letting him lead the way for an Ashton Jeanty, let's go. Like, sign me up for that. Plus Colton Miller, plus Dylan Parham's good player. Delmar Glaze, pretty solid last year. So Ted McMillan, Will Johnson's definitely the other thing here. If it wasn't Ashton Jeanty, it probably would have been Will Johnson for me here, just because that coverage unit is. I mean, how many years now we've been talking about Patrick Graham needs a corner. Patrick Graham needs a corner. So I forego that here to give him Ashton Jeanty, though.
It's hard to argue against that, man. They had the worst rushing grade in the NFL this past year, and they also had the worst coverage grade in the NFL, right? So I don't blame you for looking at Will Johnson or Ashton Jeanty. Jeanty, like I said, is the closest thing to a generational talent after Travis Hunter. I truly believe not only are the 2 best players in college football this past year, the 2 best players in this draft too. I think he is Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson. He's on that kind of level. And running back, I don't know about you. I think running back's one of the easier positions to scout. Like, you kind of know who's a guy and who's not a guy coming out of college. Jeanty is absolutely a guy. And I think, they need a quarterback, but man, you got a good O-line, like you just mentioned before. You got some nice weapons. You got Brock Bowers there. You got Jacoby Myers, who I like. You add in Ashton Jeanty. Whoever they get at quarterback is in actually a very good position to succeed in Las Vegas. So I actually love that pick at number 6 overall, and I can totally see it happening on draft night.
Real quick, before I give it to you with the Jets at 7, between Bijan, Saquon, and Jeanty, how would you stack those 3?
Dude, Dalton and I actually did this before too. We're like, I have no idea how you would order them. Penn State guy, it's so hard for me not to put Saquon.
Yeah, I
know. He legit was just unreal at Penn State. I would probably put Saquon 1. Oh God, I think it 2 and 3 Bijan, and I'd probably put Bijan 2. Oh,
that's my order.
It feels so wrong doing it. I'd probably put Bijan 2 and Ashton 3. It is legitimately, even Saquon at 1, I don't feel good about either. Like, I think those 3 were so special. I mean, look at it now. Like, Saquon and Bijan might be 2 of the 3 best running backs in the NFL right now. Yeah. So, like I said before, it's like, who's a guy and who's not a guy coming out of college, and they translate pretty much immediately. Jeanty, I'm pretty sure, is going to be a top 5 running back sooner rather than later.
No doubt about it. All right, what do you want to do with the Jets here at 7?
Yeah, actually, breaking news today with Davante Adams no longer being a New York Jet made this pick pretty easy to me. I think Ted McMillan on the board would be a home run if I'm the New York Jets. You add him with Garrett Wilson. They are 2 they complement their games very, very well. Obviously, New York's got to figure out what they're going to do at quarterback. Maybe they trade up from 7 to get either Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. But in this situation, with both of them off the board and Davante Adams out the door, Allen Lazard, they're letting him seek a trade. I'm not sure who's going to want to trade for Allen Lazard. But they actually now all of a sudden receiver is a desperate need for New York, because all you got right now is pretty much just Garrett Wilson, and hopefully Malachi Corley can develop. But that didn't really look great last year in his rookie year. So I just love this fit of Ted McMillan. He could play the X for the Jets, while Garrett could be the Z receiver for them. And I just think they really complement each other really well. Whereas Ted's the bigger receiver, who actually was pretty good after the catch too this past year. He actually had the second most broken tackles after the catch in the country, after only Luther Burden, right? Which is a crazy stat considering Burden, his MO is his yak ability. Ted is a 6'5" receiver. Like, that's not supposed to be what his game is. Yet he was that good after the catch this past year. I love Ted McMillan. I think he's a top 10 talent in this draft. And I think New York now with Davante Adams out the door, I think he would be a really good pick at number 7.
Yeah, no, and I'm with you. I've always seen Drake London more as the comp for Ted than I would say Mike Evans. But, I mean, dude, I agree. Can you go wrong with either one? I mean, like, if that's the error we're talking about, then, sign me up for that. Like you said, Davante Adams out the door. I think this is a perfect pairing with Garrett Wilson. And it's also with the Jets, like, Tyrod Taylor's one of those guys you kind of forget about as, like, a fringe top 32 starter in the league that, like, I think they can get by with a year of just kind of laying like Dan Campbell, first year in Detroit, they went 3-14, if I remember right. It wasn't really about wins and losses, about laying the foundation. And right. I know the Jets, it's a different beast there, not nearly as much patience, both in the ownership as well as the fan base. But, suck for a year and then go draft Drew Aller, potentially number 1 overall next year, or Arch Manning, or, whoever it is. Let Tyrod be serviceable. And you know what? Worst comes to worst, you're a better team, and you can figure out how you're going to maneuver the board in 26,
Yeah, so maybe Jordan Travis shows you something, right? I mean, he seems to be more like a career backup, but I love the kid. I actually interviewed him a couple of years ago. He was an awesome guy. And hopefully he recovers from that injury. I've heard he actually had a setback with that injury, which is not great. But I think just like that, like I maybe they go after a veteran and just try to stabilize the organization right now. But I really don't hate Tyrod Taylor as a starter for a year, and then maybe seeing what Jordan Travis has got, and then maybe next year's class or even the class after, because it sounds like I've heard reports that Arch might stay for 2 years at Texas. We'll see what he does next year. Obviously, if he wins a Heisman Trophy, I'd be hard pressed to see him decide to come back to school for another year, right? But it'd be interesting. I think next year's quarterback class, I don't know, it's definitely not right now better at the top. I don't know if there's any guy next year that I would take over Cam Ward or over Shedeur Sanders, but yeah, I think it's deeper at least. So it'll be interesting to see what happens and how it shakes out next year.
Well, and it's one of those things where you can sell yourself on a year of, where could Drew Aller be in a year's time, or Garrett Nussmeier? And like, I have faith in both those guys. Aller's I think he just needs to speed up just about everything in his game. And like you see the Notre Dame game, there's still some decision making to be cleaned up. And then Nussmeier, like, God, he plays like his dad's, now the Saints offensive coordinator. He plays like that. But sometimes it gets him into trouble. Like, you get that last pick against South Carolina where you're like, what are you doing?
Oh, he's a gunslinger.
You get some
Garrett's a gunslinger
against Ole Miss, and you're like, whoa, let's go.
Yeah.
Like,
Garrett, that's the thing with Garrett, and why he's not my number 1 quarterback going into. Dude, honestly, it's gonna sound crazy. I think Cade Klubnik is getting slept on right now. I think that guy is so freaking unbelievable at Clemson this past year. I think he's the best quarterback in the country right now. I really do. So he could be a guy that really emerges next year too in the quarterback class, because he is very talented. And that Texas playoff game, especially, I was like, man, this is legit. He actually did really get a lot better. So it's wide open next year. I'm excited to see how it plays out.
No, I would agree. And if I were to rank 2026 guys, he would be number 1. And trust me, that takes a lot of pride for me to do that, or I guess not a lot of pride. I don't know what the right way to say that would be. But anyways.
I'm with you. He was not good 2 years ago.
2 years ago, I was the biggest Cade Klubnik hater. I was like, this guy sucks. He's dog shit. Like, you can't play him. And then I was watching a Clemson game with a buddy of mine this year, and I was hyping him up on Drew Aller. I was like, no, this is going to be this year's QB3. Trust me. He was like, I don't know. I don't think he's great. Have you watched Klubnik though? And I was like, no, Klubnik sucks. Like, and then at the end of the year, I was like, all right, let's do a dive. And I was like, oh, he got a lot better. Like, dude, way better than where he was 2 years ago. So.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody could throw on that Texas defense, and he did it. He legit almost willed Clemson back. I haven't decided who I'm picking to win the Natty next year, but man, oh man, I think Clemson is loaded next year. They could make a run and do it next year, because that team with Klubnik there and all those guys that got. I know it's not college football we're doing right now, but
no, you're good. If Penn State could just get a receiver, y'all would be in that running.
Just one, man. Jesus. Dude. And if they had anyone, that they would have beaten Notre Dame. Honestly, that's more on their receivers than anything else. But
yeah, and if Steve Angeli can hold up, I'm still got hope for my Fighting Irish. So I'm
maybe. Do you think? Right now we're going off the rails. Do you think he's going to win the job? I've heard a lot of CJ Carr stuff too with it.
No, I've been hearing the same too lately. So I don't know. Angeli looked okay in that. What was it? Was it the Penn State game? He comes in and he leads them into that field goal at the end of the first half. It's like, okay, But it's also like you game plan for Riley Leonard, and then you get this statue quarterback thrown in there. It's a lot to adjust if you're a defense too. So, anyways, Carolina Panthers, man, this is a tough one here. This is one where do I have to go I might have to go Will Johnson here. I've been going Jalen Walker and Shamar Stewart more often than not here, but for the sake of mixing this up, I might have to go Will Johnson, man. J.C. Horn. Up and down. I mean, I think he's pretty good when he's on the field, but just availability's up and down. Ejiro Evero, there in Denver when they get Pat Surtain, that's kind of the main comp you see out there for Will Johnson. I'm going to do something a little different here. I'm going to go Will Johnson. It's also a deep defensive line group. So, it's, like I look at the Jets and I would love to get them defensive interior, but they're also in a sweet spot to go grab a guy at the top of the second for that. And I think the same is true here for Carolina, being able to grab a guy in the second even third round and potentially getting some production out of them. So can't really say the same about the drop off after, the top few corners. So I'm going to go Will Johnson here at Carolina for Carolina at 8.
Yeah, I love it. I think he's a very talented player. That's a fascinating pick at number 8 overall. I have no idea what they're going to do. All right.
I like some more for them too. I will throw that out as my honorable mention.
Yeah, I do. I think he's going to be up there, even though I'm a little bit lower on him still. But I think he was unreal at the Senior Bowl, and he had an unreal combine too. So he's definitely moving up boards. All right, the Saints at 9. I'm going to go with my guy Tyler Warren. I think
this is a pretty pick lately.
Yeah, I like this a lot. I think he is pretty easily like a top 7 to 8 player in this draft. I think New Orleans has a need at tight end as well. There's not a lot of guys I would take over Tyler Warren who are still on the board right here. So, and he fits a need in New Orleans. So I think, him and that offense would be really fun.
Yeah, I've been shuffling around my big board, and it was just one of those things where like you don't touch it for a little bit, and then it's like, okay, sorry, this has been at least a couple months. Let's touch this up. He's in my top 10 there. Shamar Stewart right behind him too. So like a couple of guys right there for the Saints that I think would just be like chef kiss hits. Then we get to the Bears here at 10, man. All right, do we have the Will Campbell discussion? Is it time? Have we made it to that part of the show? Dude, what do we do with 32 and 5'8" arms? Like I have him in my rankings as a tackle still, but and also shortest wingspan at the really at the position's history. Any shot he's placed tackle? What do you think? What's your read on the situation?
I'm feel the same way about Peter Skoronski. It's like I would give him a shot and let him fail and then see what you do. But like with Chicago, I still think he's very much on the table. Like I honestly I think he could play interior and be really good as either.
My pick here is still Will Campbell, by the way. I'm still go Will Campbell here at 10.
Yeah, I love it. I think this is a great pick for Chicago because I think you can play him a tackle. If it doesn't work, you already have 2 decent tackles already. And then you can put him at guard, and even like Trevor's even mentioned before, put him at center. Yeah, like if you see it, what he does at LSU, like usually the center is the one that calls out the protections. Will Campbell is doing that at left tackle for LSU, right? So he's a really smart player. And obviously he was phenomenal at LSU last 3 years. So yeah, the wingspan of the arm length is not ideal to play tackle, but I think in a situation like Chicago, like he doesn't need to play tackle. Like he could play tackle. You could see if he could play it or not. And then if not, you can move him out inside to guard and move Braxton Jones back out to tackle. I think in Chicago, it's really just like put your best 5 on the field.
Right.
And Will Campbell's got the versatility to play legitimately all 5 positions of the offensive line, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's where probably Bears fans watch my mocks because like I haven't moved off this pick because I think it's twofold. You could do one of 2 things. You could treat it like Brandon Coleman going to the Commanders and like we're gonna have an open battle at left tackle and loser plays left guard. Congratulations. Or you do like him playing center for Ben Johnson coming from Detroit with Frank Ragnow. I mean, makes a lot of sense there. He plays a little high, but you're also talking about a guy sub 5 second 40. So like the movement skills totally match up there with what you want at that position. So I'm totally here for it. And it's like you said, it's almost basketball. You're one of our 5 best. Yeah, we're going to figure out where that spot is for you, but you're one of our 5 best. So just make it happen. And I also think of it in Chicago, like I think Braxton Jones is solid, but he kind of comes with this. He's solid for a 5th rounder caveat. You always say that with him, or at least I do.
Right.
I think back to Dallas, the year where Travis Frederick had that like crazy, I think it was like a spine injury or something like that, or neck injury. He had that one year where he couldn't play. And like Dallas's offensive line had like best in the league, pretty good. And then he comes back, best in the league. I almost wonder if like the right center, and I mean, do you draft a center at 10 overall? That's a different discussion for a different day. But the right center could have that same type of effect where it's like everyone across the board just gets a step up, like, high tide raises all ships type of thing for the Chicago Bears. So I wonder if Will Campbell could be that guy. But anyways, I'll give it to you now with San Francisco.
Yeah. So I want to ask: are we doing what we think is going to happen, or we would do as a GM?
Yeah, sorry, I meant to say this before we started recording. I do a bit of both, to quote Star-Lord from the end of Guardians of the Galaxy. Right. Whatever makes sense, whatever narrative you want to float, I do it. But also, I do a ton of mock drafts. We do one like once every other week because to me, I'm a geek for exploring possibilities and team building process. And if this guy happens here, what happens? How far does this guy fall? I like doing all that stuff. So if you got something crazy here, go for it.
I don't think it's crazy.
Okay.
I think what I think will happen if he's here is Armand Membu, the Missouri tackle. He was unreal at the combine. He actually has the length to play tackle, unlike a lot of the guys in this class. And he had a terrific year at Missouri. I believe he was like one of only a few tackles in the country who had 85 plus grades as a run blocker and pass blocker. So awesome. I think he would be the pick. What I would do is, and what I'm going to do here is take Calvin Banks Jr. From Texas. I am so high on this guy. He's still my top offensive lineman in this draft. I understand that, again, the length is a concern for some people. I don't think it's as big of a concern as it is for Will Campbell. I thought Banks was easily one of the best tackles in the country this past year. He's got 3 years of elite production. He played a gauntlet of a schedule in terms of the defensive lines he faced, and he put up ridiculous numbers across the board against all of those defensive lines. Like, he never really had a bad game. Like, he had like 80 plus grades against some of the best edge rushers in the country, which is just, it's crazy. So I think he's getting really slept on in this class. And not only that, but I love the scheme fit in San Francisco. Totally. He's an athletic offensive lineman who could work really well in a zone scheme, which is what San Francisco obviously runs in the Kyle Shanahan offense. So I love this fit. So I don't think it's what they would do. I think Armand Mimbu, who also is an outstanding fit in a zone scheme, would probably be the pick considering how high he's risen on boards recently. But I'm still a massive Kelvin Banks Jr. guy, and I personally still think he's the best offensive lineman in the draft.
And I still like Kelvin Banks Jr. And again, I'm still figuring out where my heart is on Will Campbell, like what position group. If Will Campbell is in my guard rankings, Mimbu is my top tackle, but I still have Banks ranked up there. Like, he's neck and neck with Simmons to me in a lot of ways, where if I had finished, if like Simmons had a full year of tape, he might edge out Kelvin Banks, but it's not like Banks is bad by any, like, it's funny, about 7 months ago, people were looking at this tackle group like, I hope you got one last year. And all of a sudden, it's like, I don't know. Like, Josh Connerly's being mocked in the mid-20s. Like, sign me up for that. Like, I'm here for that. So, which, side note, I did think about Josh Simmons there at 10, but I'm going to stick with Will Campbell there. But really, for San Francisco, you can't go wrong because you either have Kelvin Banks playing next to Trent Williams, feed families, or you get Armand Mimbu at right tackle next to Dominic Pooney. And again, I say, feed the families. Like, that is just, you can't lose in that proposition.
Yeah, I'll put Banks at right tackle even and see if he can do it. I think he can play tackle in the NFL. I'm not really that concerned with him. I think he's a special talent, and I think he's kind of getting slept on a little bit, this O-line class a little bit. So,
which I guess I've been mocking Kelvin Banks with the idea of, like, he plays next to Trent Williams, and then that guy just gets the torch handed to him. But I'm totally here for the right tackle of it all, and then again, feed families with him and Dominic Pooney next to each other.
Oh, dude,
that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Which then takes us to Dallas, dude. And it would have been nice if Ted McMillan was here. GT, of course, everyone's favorite pick. Jahdae Barron's kind of spicy to me here. I feel like Jerry likes drafting his Texas guys. So, like, also another combine guy that, we'll talk about him when we get there. But Matthew Golden ran a number that I don't think anybody really saw coming. So could he be the play here? I think I'm going to go Armand Mimbu here. Terrence Steele is just not very good, in my opinion. That's just me. So you can move on from Terrence Steele, or you play this guy at guard for the time being, and they're still kind of shuffling up some pieces, Zach Martin calling it a career, Notre Dame fan here, like one of my goats of my generation. So it's kind of twofold. Membu's either your Martin replacement. Good luck with replacing a Hall of Famer, but that's solid. Or he's your Terrence Steele replacement. So I feel like he can't fail, but it kind of screws over the Dolphins too. But we can't focus on that. Armand Mimbu. That's be my pick here at 12. Good luck with the Dolphins here at 13. That would have been the pick right there.
That's an easy pick. I mean, it's the Kyle Shanahan offense. They essentially run there with the heavy zone run scheme. And I think Mimbu, you saw how athletic he was. Like, you need athletic offensive linemen to run a zone blocking scheme. Mimbu is one of the most athletic ones we saw at the combine, right? So I would love that pick here for Miami, but it's a great pick there. I do love that. Miami here at 13. I'm going to go with the thinking that Javon Holland, they did not franchise tag him. I think he's going to get like around $20 million a year on the free agency market. I don't know if that'll come from Miami. So I'll operate on the principle of maybe they don't bring him back. And I'll take Malachi Starks here. Who I still think is a top safety in the draft. I do think guys like Nick Manwari, and even, that sounds like a home. I think Kevin Winston Jr. is getting so slept on. I think if he didn't get hurt, dude, he might get drafted in the third round of this draft. If he didn't get hurt, he would have been a first-round pick, in my opinion. He's that good of a player. But I think Malachi Starks still is a top safety. He wasn't a great combine for him overall, but he's a very fast player. He's a true free safety that could be a good replacement for Javon Holland. So I really wanted to draft a lineman here because obviously the news of Teron Armstead likely retiring, and even with Teron Armstead, they had a big need of offensive line. But I'm not the biggest Josh Simmons fan. There's guys that I would take over him in this class. So I think Malachi Starks though is a guy that I'd be comfortable taking here for Miami.
Yeah, and I love the Kevin Winston Jr. shout out. And if people have been watching both on my channel and on 32B Writers, I feel like I'm the only one sneaking him into these second round mocks. Like he was my preseason safety too. Obviously the injury. I've started to come around on Nick Manwari. He's my safety too. If I had to nail it down today. But Winston Jr. is my safety 3. Like, and
Yeah.
said over Xavier Watts, Notre Dame fan here, taking Kevin Winston Jr. over him. Super athletic. I mean, like, it's helmet scouting, but there's some Jaquan Brisker in his game in my eyes.
That's so too, man. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
And like the best tackling safety I think I've ever scouted. Like I don't. He's missed 2 tackles in his career. Like it's just the silent speed, like you said. He's got the explosiveness, and then just the form as a tackler is unreal. Like he's an unreal run defender, obviously, and he's great in coverage. Like he's got the athleticism to thrive in coverage. I think Kevin Winston Jr. could be a star in the NFL as a safety. So I think the partially torn ACL is rough, and like I said, he's right now projected as a late 3rd round pick. If someone gets him in the late 3rd round, man, he is going to be a steal, I think, for a team.
Yeah. I'm fully with you there. And if I could manifest one fit for him, like the Buffalo Bills, like with the split high safety, let this guy be like the new generation Micah Hyde or Jordan Poyer. Yeah. Like, sign me up for that. Really more Poyer. But anyways, dude, the Colts, man. I feel like it's malpractice if I don't take Jahdae Barron here.
Yeah, I like it.
Let me just throw this out as an honorable mention. Falcons fans, here's my mock that I feel like everyone's been going, pass rusher with Atlanta, and it makes sense. Totally could work in, you've ignored it for so long that there's only so many years where you pass on it in the first round. But Jahdae Barron in the first round, Braden Swinton in the second round, hear me out, Falcons fans. Yeah. Like, does that not get you excited? Like that would be such a fun fit. But I don't want to make a player available for the Falcons here at 14. So I feel like I got to go Jahdae Barron. And I'll be honest with you, Max. I feel like I'm on an island with this. I value slot almost more than I value outside. Honestly, and I'll go out and say it. I value slot more than outside corner. I think we're going to be 5 to 10 years from now talking about slot corner as like the cornerstone of an NFL defense. Hopefully I'm not wrong. Hopefully. But I just think there's just so much value you bring by being at the center of a defense where the gravitational pull is at its most extreme. And Jahdae Barron is a tackler. What he could do as a blitzer. Like Lou Anarumo, and like think about what he did with Mike Hilton when he first got there. Like to me, like this fit just makes too much sense. I know Kenny Moore's still there. So there's something to be figured out with who's going to truly play the nickel. But Kenny Moore is also getting up there in age. The price tags eventually become something you want to move on from. So Jahdae Barron, I think long-term, that's your slot guy right there. And they play so much different zone coverage with Anarumo. So or they will. So I think he fits in all of that. The only knock on him is like the arm length. But again, I don't care. Play him in the slot. I value that even more, honestly. And then a 4.40, man. Like the Texas guys came out running really good numbers for where I thought they were.
Yeah, dude. He was the best corner in college football this past year, in my opinion.
Yeah, totally.
He was unreal. And like I said, the versatility to play on the outside, play in the slot, even played safety early on in his career too. He is a special football player. So I'm with you. I think he is a phenomenal talent, and probably for me, CB3 in this draft behind Travis Hunter and Will Johnson. So I love that. All right, Falcons at 15. So again, I think this is not what's going to happen in the actual draft. I think Shamar Stewart will be going over this guy in the draft, but I'm still the biggest James Pierce Jr. fan, and I'd be really
let's do it
to pass him up here at 15. I think Pierce is still probably close to a top 10 prospect for me on my big board. I haven't put together a big board yet, but he will be up there. Just a freak athlete, ran around in the 4.4s of the combine.
4.47.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then what I keep going back to, he improved so much as a run defender, I thought, this past year. He made a lot more plays in the backfield. And the other thing too is like, dude, he's still winning purely off athleticism, which is obviously a double-edged sword. It's a bad thing because you got to develop moves, but also you got to think about like, dude, he was a top 3 pass rusher in college football in back-to-back years in the SEC as a sophomore and a junior without many moves, right? So I think James Pierce Jr. is again, getting slept on. Now, I've heard the character, quote-unquote, character concerns. I have no idea. I've never talked to the kid. I obviously don't know his background like that. I know he was arrested for a very minor traffic violation last year, and the charges were dropped. I don't think that's probably not what it's stemming from, but I don't know. Obviously, teams will figure all this out when they interview him, but just going off the football player, I think he is a phenomenal talent, and I think I think Atlanta, who's needed a top tier pass rusher for what feels like a decade, they need a guy like James Pierce Jr. who could just provide some speed off the edge.
I'm totally with you, and honestly, like no matter what people say about, this guy, he's going to go higher than this. There's going to be 2 edge rushers that fall this year into the late teens, into the 20s, and we're going to be like, wow, who let X team get Mike Green? Who let X team have Jalen Walker fall or Shamar Stewart or whatever? Or it's James Pierce Jr. even maybe, so It's the year. If you're the Falcons at 15, the Bucks at 19, and you need edge, dude, like this is the year because someone's going to fall into your lap. So, and to your point, yeah, he doesn't have a full move set yet, but yeah, 23% pass rush win rate despite it. Yeah, sign me up for that project. I'm totally here for that. So then we get to the Cardinals, man. Underrated. I want to throw out Luther Burden. I just think his yards after the catch skill set with Marvin Harrison Jr. would be really tempting. I also think Drew Petting's a really good offensive coordinator. I like him a good bit. But I just can't shake the Kenneth Grant fit, man. I adore him as like he can play the nose and he can play 3-tech for that defensive line. Him and Darius Robinson, both like guys you can be versatile with. They need some help on edge, but again, this is the year to go draft, Josiah Stewart in the 3rd round or, whoever, and get that complimentary guy you're rotating in on, passing down. So I love Kenneth Grant here. Didn't get to see him test, but he's, let's just call him 340 pounds and, number 2 on Bruce Feldman's freak list for a good reason. So he's a little hot and cold as a pass rusher, but another one of these guys that with the right coach, that could become really dangerous really quick. So I love him right in the middle of that Cardinals D-line.
Love it. Love that pick. All right.
I also think he would have been a great Bengal for sure.
Yeah, that was one I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Their defense was so bad last year. I know. And I know it's something that they're going to want to target, like a D tackle, like Walter Nolan, maybe, or something like that. And Mike Green's still available here, but I don't know. He's a weird one with all the stuff that's going on with him too. Yeah. So I'm going to go for the luxury pick here.
Okay.
And I'm going to go with Luther Burden. And
Let's do it.
And I know they're going to sign T. Higgins to a long-term deal. I know they're not going to let him walk out the door. So they have those two locked up with Jamar, or they will have those two locked up with Jamar and T. If you can get Luther Burden in there as a slot receiver, like, dear God, man, like Joe Burrow is going to win at least like 2 MVPs probably with that receiving core. I understand the defense needs a lot of work, and we'll handle that on day 2 and day 3 and hopefully in free agency as well. But man, I look at the board and where it's falling. I think Emeka Egbuka is a guy they should be targeting too in this draft. And the fact that Luther Burden is still there, like, I mean, I would take Burden over Egbuka. And I just think that weapon in that offense alongside Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, like, it's almost too good to pass up. And there wasn't really a top tier defensive lineman that I really would have taken there. I just think Luther Burden's a much better prospect. And honestly, at the end of the day, you draft the best players. I know you're looking for need as well, but if a guy like Luther Burden, the 3rd, falls in your lap, I remember like what happens with the Dallas Cowboys. Like, they didn't really need a receiver, but they drafted CeeDee Lamb. Now look what he's doing for them.
Worked out well. Yeah.
How valuable he is. So I just think those 3 together, at least for next year, and we'll see what happens with T. Higgins. But and at least it also gives you flexibility. You can say, you know what, if T wants to go, we could trade him away or something like that, and we could have Luther Burden and Jamar Chase, right? So it gives you kind of flexibility with that as well. Like I said, that's just a luxury pick that I can't really pass up right there.
Yeah, dude, the rich get richer, and you already have the best yak receiver in the NFL. Why not go get the best yak product of the draft? And also a guy who runs 4.42, and like no one talks about how he can stretch the field with a slot fade, but
yes,
he can push. He can push. The defense back. He can make safeties respect his long speed. So I don't get it why he's not going in anybody's first round. I'm kind of with you. He's in and around this spot on my big board. So I see a first rounder with Luther Burden. So I don't know. But dude, now we get to the Seattle Seahawks, man. And this is, the post combine mock draft. We got to be trendy, man. We got to go with combine winners. The problem is, man, which one? Also, let me actually go back real quick. Cincy, I have Walter Nolan as my IDL too. So I would have dug that line of thinking that you were kind of hitting at. Decided to go Kenneth Grant over Nolan because I think the value playing true nose is a little bit more there with Grant. I think Arizona might value that, which I think Nolan could do at the next level. I would just prefer the 340-pounder do it versus the 305-pounder, 300-pounder, whatever. Which I guess that's more of his Senior Bowl weight. Anyways, I digress. Well, simply put, I'm between Jihad Campbell and Nick Emmanwori here. I wanted to be the cool guy to be like, yo, Nick Emmanwori, it's like Kyle Hamilton, but with athletic testing. And then Trevor puts it out on his freaking 2-round post, combine mock. He snaked me. He beat me to it. So I'm seeing that line of thinking, but at the same time, like Jihad Campbell, man, he's got to go one of these next 3 picks. He's a great fit for Mike McDonald, Todd Bowles, and Vance Joseph. So it's just like a matter of like which one of these 3. You know what? I think I'm looking at the upcoming picks. Ooh, I was thinking Malachi Starks maybe at 27 for Baltimore, but he's gone. I'm going to go Emmanwori. We're going to do the overreaction pick. And it's not that Emmanwori's a bad player, not by any stretch, but I'll be transparent. When I watch his tape, I see a second-round guy. Like I see a big athletic guy who can fly the ball, but I still see a work in progress in coverage. Just me. There's some instincts there, but I still think it's a work in progress. But if you're telling me Mike McDonald's going to play him in the nickel, where again, I value guys more at the nickel, dude, sign me up for that. Like, how could you not be excited about 6'3", 220, sub 4.4 speed at that alignment? Like, sign me up for it. But I think it's going to take the right defensive coordinator. Like, I worry he's going to get drafted into, I don't know. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but he's going to get drafted to Buffalo. And he's just going to play too high. And that's going to be the Nicky Manwari thing. But, I think Mike McDonald's the guy. If there's a defensive coordinator crack the code about best usage, I think he's the guy. The downside here is he turns into another Jeremy Chin, which don't think you drafted Jeremy Chin at 18. So I give it to you now at 19 with Tampa.
Yeah, I think 19 for Tampa. I think it's pretty simple. Trevor, who has a lot of connections to the Buccaneers, he's told me before that he'd be surprised if they passed on Jahad Campbell if he was there. So I'm going to take Jahad Campbell here to the Buccaneers at number 19 overall. Obviously, a phenomenal combine for Campbell. He's currently 10th on the big board for PFF, which is Trevor's big board. I don't think he's that high for me, but like I said, I trust Trevor with the Buccaneers, obviously, as Tampa Bay Trey. And he told me that he knows that the Buccaneers are very, very enamored by Jahad Campbell. So I think at 19, if he's there, that probably would be the pick.
And man, I won't belabor the point here. Colston Loveland's going to be the pick at 20. Sean Payton's looking for a joker. This is your guy. It's just funny how the draft works. My grade for Warren is closer to Bowers, but just solely looking at play style, Loveland is much more of a Bowers tight end than like a Tyler Warren is. Warren's a freak though, so like don't limit what he could do. But like Colston Loveland, he could be a big slot for a Sean Payton. Also, like at 6'6", like I don't remember if it was you guys talking about it or if it was Trev on. I think it might have been Trev on NFL SE. If he's 6'6", dude, like why couldn't he get to 250, 260 and be Tyler Warren size and play in line? What's stopping him? Maybe, the change of direction skills and some of the strengths he has, but just get to Elijah Arroyo, 247, 250 range, play in line. That's all we need. But I think that play him in the slot, play him, H-back. Sean Payton's a good offensive mind. Give him a weapon like this. He's going to maximize the value Loveland brings to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that pick. I think, like I said, he's looking for the joker, and that's exactly what Coastal Level brings to the offense. He's like a tight end / wide receiver, especially with the way he moves up there. All right, Steelers at 21.
All right, Max, save us. Give me some hope.
Yeah, dude. I think, again, what I think will happen if he's on the board is I think Matthew Golden goes above Emeka Egbuka. However, I like Emeka Egbuka still more than Matthew Golden. I know he ran a 4.29. I don't think Matthew Golden's actually – that speed doesn't really show up on the field that much, right? So it's kind of like a weird one with Matthew Golden. I still think he's a good player. I just think Egbuka, his floor is so high, just gets open at such a high level. And I think he complements George Pickens really well in that offense too. So he's one of the guys for Pittsburgh at number 21 overall that I'm very much targeting from the Steelers.
Yeah, and I'll say the same thing once we get to Golden selection, which, by the way, I think at 23, I think he's live for the Packers now. I think that could be a fun fit for Golden. Just throwing it out there. But yeah, I wrote down in my notes 4.48, so yikes. Almost 0.2 of a second off. Or 0.2 of a second. So I don't know. Maybe sometimes also with those guys who are like sub 200 pounds, I feel like this is lazy thinking for sure. But I do wonder how much the pads kind of play into that, because I do feel like you get to a certain threshold and like Quentin Johnston looks 4.3, whatever, but he's also a bigger guy. So like he carries the pads a little bit better, maybe. I don't know. Just a crackpot theory that I have there. I wonder if the pad weight makes that not look 4.29, because I'm fully with you. I had 4.48 in my notes. Also, I did want to ask 2 questions with the Steelers. If you go in Emeka Egbuka, are you giving up on Roman Wilson? Because that's my one worry about that is you take Egbuka, you're basically saying Wilson's gone.
I don't know what gone. But it's tough because they are both slot receivers only. Egbuka,
I think, could play outside, but Roman is, he's
Roman's probably a slot only. I would see if he could work with the two of them, but obviously Roman didn't do really anything last year in his rookie year. Well, obviously give him some time too, but I don't know. I don't think Roman Wilson's stopping me from taking Emeka Egbuka there.
I think that's totally fair. And if you just stack him with his prospects, why let good get in the way of potentially, really good, or something like that. Similar lines of thinking. Oh, the other thing, on a scale of 1 to 100, what are the odds they take a tackle here? Like any shot that if, the right tackle falls in their lap, they say, hey, you know what, Broderick, it just hasn't worked out. We're going to draft a left tackle.
Yeah, I think it's possible. I think, because they obviously could use a little help at guard too. So I think maybe they say, okay, maybe Broderick, you move inside the guard, or we take a guy that we think could play guard a little bit and maybe kick outside the tackle if one of them is still struggling. I think it's certainly possible with the Steelers. So yeah, I think that's definitely not a I don't think it's out of the realm possibility at all. I think with the tackle class there is, and some guys having the versatility to play guard, I think offensive line is definitely on the table for the Steelers at 21.
Man, all right, well, we'll see. A lot of holes to fill. I do think the Steelers are going to go veteran receiver market, but I don't know. I could be wrong on that. Like Cooper Kupp, Christian Kirk. They had a deal for Kirk at the deadline done. Could they make that happen? I also really like corner there at 21. So, but it takes the right guy there at that spot. Anyways, another one I'll be quick on. I will be shocked if this pick is not Amari Hampton for the Los Angeles Chargers. I get it. Loveland would be a fun fit, and they could do some defensive reinforcements totally. But Amari Hampton is like Greg Roman, Jim Harbaugh, downhill runner. But also he's athletic enough to fit into a zone scheme, so you can still be versatile with how you use him. And I think the other thing is too, and I was talking to some Chargers people at the Senior Bowl who were like me in the Kamani Vidal hive. Like he was my RB6 last year. Love me some Kamani Vidal, but he just wasn't what they want him to be as a pass protector. Dude, Amari Hampton, him and Taj Brooks are like the first two guys that come to my mind for like pass protection. So like, I think 3-down value right away. And I also think taking Vidal out of the question, they'll probably bring back Dobbins for a year, maybe 2. Dobbins plus Hampton, like pump that into my veins, dude. I'm fully here for that combo. So I love this. I think this is the blocker they've been looking for. I think this is the downhill runner, but he's also explosive, big play guy. I think this is Jim Harbaugh, Greg Roman through and through. Yeah,
I love that pick. I think he's definitely an option. And I think he had an awesome combine too. So you could definitely be a first-round pick, which is crazy considering how many good running backs are in this class. You mentioned before, I think this is a pretty easy pick for the Packers. At 23, it's Matthew Golden. I just think they got to find something at receiver. I don't know if Golden will ever be a true number 1 in the NFL, which is why I'm a little lower on him.
That's why he fits in Green Bay.
Yeah, exactly. And Green Bay, like it's just so many complimentary guys. I think he could be the number 1 in Green Bay. And he had an awesome combine, obviously. So he had a breakout year this past year. I think he'll go higher than this in the draft, but this would be a great pick for Green Bay if he's here at 23.
I think another guy that will go higher than where I have him go. Oh, actually, there's 2 guys. Walter Nolan or Jalen Walker is going to be the pick here at 24, but I just got to figure out which one. But I think they would both be awesome fits here for Minnesota. The other thing I think about Golden is like, no disrespect to Christian Watson, but I think he's pretty soundly the 4th best receiver out of their main 4, just the way I see it. And I just think, like, I would love to see Jack Besh there and like as a second-round option if Green Bay is going to Green Bay and they're going to do it in the second round. Like, just the reliability that comes with the Jack Besh versus like, I think there's, if reliability is Jack Besh, like there couldn't be a person further from that than Christian Watson, in my opinion. So work with injuries, but also the drops. But I also think Matthew Golden has a great ability to go up and he has great body control. Like he contorts really well working the football. And that's just not something Christian Watson has in his game. I think I want to say like the status he's drawn 3 pass interferences in his career so far. Like that's just insane. Like that's just not good enough for what he does. So I think Matthew Golden is just a better version of Christian Watson. So that is why I threw that one out there a little bit earlier. Oh man, Walter Nolan or Jalen Walker. Jalen Walker's number 6 player on my board. So I feel like I'm kind of going against myself here if I don't take him here, but I also love me some Walter Nolan. You know what? If there's anybody who could maximize Jalen Walker, it's got to be Brian Flores. I'm going to go with Jalen Walker here. I've been describing him almost kind of like, Sean Payton talked about these tight ends as a joker. Like to quote Heath Ledger playing the Joker, like an agent of chaos is what I see Jalen Walker as, which makes it tough because like, is he Isaiah Simmons? Like, does he not have a home? Is he homeless? But I think play him at edge, use him in sim pressures, stunts and twists. The guy's a monster. Like no guard is catching up with Jalen Walker screaming across their face. So, and if there's a guy to utilize that, the king of sim pressures of the last couple of years is Brian Flores. So, and also with his athletic ability, when you need him to spot drop into zone, that's Jalen Walker's, I think he's got the capabilities of doing that. It's not what I love on his tape. I like the pass rush stuff more, but I also see a good pound for pound like player when it comes to play strength too. So I like Jalen Walker. This is his lowest he's gone in a mock for me in forever. So this is kind of fun. We're exploring different possibilities here. Jalen Walker to the Vikings at 24.
Yeah, I like Jalen Walker too. I'm a little lower on him than you and most people. I think he's more like a mid to late first round pick, but he's still a very, very fun player. And I think Brian Flores, even like I said, it's a great point. Like he'd be phenomenal there.
Him like Eamon Warrior, it's going to take the right guy. Because if you just draft him and land him at one spot, you've wasted the pick. But if you get creative, there's a lot of juice to be had.
Absolutely. All right, here at the Texans, Matthew Golden would have been really fun. He's gone. I don't love the interior line class. Like I wouldn't take Gray Zabel or Tyler Booker here. So I'm going to go with Nolan.
Herman or Alexander.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I like Harmon Alexander. I'm gonna go with Walter Nolan actually.
Okay.
The
Oh yeah. Don't follow your rankings, TJ.
Yeah, from Ole Miss. I think he's obviously a great player. Unreal year this past year, athletic player as well. I understand like interior O line is the bigger priority than interior D line, but interior at defensive tackle is definitely still a need for Houston. And like I said, there's not really an interior offensive lineman that really jumps off the page to me here. So I like Walter Nolan a lot in this Texans defense. So I think it'd be a fun pick here.
Well, you see, that was the Galaxy brain thinking. I won't take Nolan at 24, so that way I can help out the Houston the
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Always thinking 4 steps ahead, of course. No, I'm with you there. I don't hate Zabel here. I think the other thing to consider when it comes to offensive line improvements is sometimes it's coaching, right? Like, I don't know if Kenyon Green was ever going to fit Bobby Slowick in, a Shanahan style offense. He's just not the most fleet of foot guy. He's more of a gap scheme dude. Like, he's the dude the Ravens are going to pick up for pennies on the dollar and have be a starter for them for the next foreseeable future. So look out for that in my coming nightmares. But I wonder if, Nick Casey coming in, I wonder if that changes any of that too, just where these guys are playing at. But you can also fix it up in free agency, day 2 of the draft. There's plenty of options to be had there. So then we get to the Rams. And this is interesting. I haven't drafted or done a mock since they've re-signed Alaric Jackson. So kind of takes Josh Simmons out of the equation here. He could flip over and play right tackle. That's where he played at Air Force, right? Before Ohio State. So that could certainly be an option. But I'm also looking at corner, and we've had a little bit of a spell since we've had the last corner. I like Trey Amos. I do like Azareye'h Thomas. Those would be the next highest guys on my board. I like Shavon Ravel. Who part of me kind of wants to get the ball skills of Ravel into that secondary.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
What do you think? What would you do here with the Rams? Or do you take a flyer and go Mike Green as Raku and let's ride?
That's probably the Ben Morrison injury is just so complicating because he's a top 20 pick in this draft if he's fully healthy.
He would be my corner 3, corner 4 if he was healthy, but I just don't know where the medical's at.
Yeah, that makes it so complicated with him. So I genuinely have no idea where he's going to fall in the draft. But if it checks out, I think he'd be an easy pick for me here. But otherwise, I just have no idea what's going to check out for him.
The other thing about that is, like, I don't want to go Azareye'h Thomas here. The Rams have been historically mostly zone, which, I mean, that's the NFL right now. So, like, duh, statement of the day. But I think Trey Amos has made strides in the right direction. I got to talk to him at the Senior Bowl about what he saw as necessary to get better in zone coverage. But at the same time, man, I'm going to go Shavon Ravel. Who knows? He may just be a Trey Amos, but there's so much meat on the bone there with what he is from a size, speed, and ball skills production. Dude, like, I don't remember who it was, but they tweeted out the pick 6 he had the last game he played this year. But, dude, go watch the pick against ODU. Like, that ball tracking is unbelievable. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and go with that. And I also think Jai Alexander is a Ram in the making. That's just kind of where my head's at. I haven't heard anything. That's just like I feel like he would make sense there. So if you're telling me it's a potential corner tandem of Shavon Ravel, Jai Alexander, sign me up for that.
I love that. I really do love that. All right. Well, Baltimore here, 27. I'm going to go with a pick that I think is lower than I think he's going to go, even though I think it's probably the range I would take him in. There might even be some other guys in his position I take over him, but I'm still going to go with Shamar Stewart, the edge rusher from A&M. I think he's going to go a lot higher than this in the actual draft. He's probably going to be a top 10 to 15 pick, I think, based on just how good he was at the Senior Bowl and how good he was at the Combine. There's some production concerns at A&M, but I don't think the defense really put him or his teammates in positions to succeed in that Aggie defense. So there's at least that, excuse he could have at least, but I still like him. I just think, there's more to do with him. Like, there's more work to be done with him than there is with other edges in this class. So that's why I'm a little lower on him. But there's no denying he is, he was unreal at the Senior Bowl, probably the best player at the Senior Bowl. And then he's legitimately one of the most athletic edge rushers we've ever seen. So I think he's going to go a lot higher than this. But Baltimore, if he was here, they'd probably be very happy with getting him here.
Yeah, I got to rank Todd a lot higher on my big board. But Baltimore's also, and I say this like painstakingly as a Steelers fan, but they're just one of these locations where they draft and develop dudes at such a high level.
Right.
That, like, this is almost the best case scenario for Shamar Stewart. Like, he's going to go and get some high caliber coaching. And next thing you know, we're going to get to year 3 of Shamar Stewart. And it's like, oh, yeah, that guy probably should have gone in the top 10. There it is. So I like the landing spot because of that, but I'm with you. I think he goes higher. Detroit Lions. Oh, man, this is going to sound insane, but I might go Donovan Izaraku here over Mike Green.
Love it.
I have Green ranked higher, but can you get away with two guys sub 32-inch arms? Or I think Green's right at 32 inches, but still like shorter arms than ideal. And you got Aiden Hutchinson on the other side. So that's kind of my concern here. You know what? And I would go Gray Zabel because I think he would be an awesome Frank Ragnow replacement long term. But I can't tell myself that Zabel's a better player than Green.
The problem with Green, the Green off-field stuff is concerning, to say the least. So
and for anybody who doesn't know, I used to play at University of Virginia, which is actually only like an hour and a half away from me. So maybe I'll try to find some sourcing out that way. But sexual. I mean,
anyone doesn't know it. There's a sexual assault or at least allegation at Virginia. Led him to leave and go to Marshall. And there's also another one that apparently in high school that he had as well. So it's concerning. You got to obviously do your digging and see if it's real or not, obviously, but like it's a thing where like if it checks out and he's totally fine, he's a top 15 pick. If not, I mean, he might be off team sports altogether, right? So that's again, there's a few guys like that in this draft, but he's definitely the biggest one. It's like you really need to check out all the off field stuff with him.
Yeah, and that's what complicates that is like even if you're at Indy, you hear this stuff, but you're not in the room actually doing this. And then it becomes that much harder when, like, I'm not at Indy. I got some info at the Senior Bowl, but like, not nearly as much of what's at the Combine. So it's like when I stack these big boards, like, where do I put my Green and all this? But
yeah, it makes it so hard, man. It's like, how do you value it? And it's possible.
So I'm gonna go Gray Zabel, and I think he starts his career at guard for you, and then he becomes your Frank Ragnow replacement. Keep a strength of strength. That offensive line kicks ass in Detroit. I think Zabel kind of fits in with that identity as well. So I toss it to you. Commanders on the clock at 29.
Yeah, I love that. I'm gonna go with Nick Scorton, the edge rusher from Texas A&M. I still really like him. I think he was held back at A&M this past year. His tape at Purdue in 2023 was outstanding as a run defender and pass rusher. They kind of made him gain weight up to 280. He played at 260 at Purdue. Just did not look the same player. Also at A&M, they didn't really let them pin their ears back as a pass rusher. They more wanted them to read and react in the run game. So that's kind of why him, and you can make the argument for Shamar Stewart as well, like why they weren't, the sack production and the pressure production just wasn't really there for them. But at least with Scorton, you can't really say for Stewart that he proved it before. So I still think he's a very good player in this draft. He was edge one for a lot of people going into the year. And it wasn't the best year at A&M this past year, but I still think he's a first round caliber player. And for a Washington defense that really needs help at edge, he would be a great pick here.
Yeah, and I mean, I know we're running a little long here, so but like real quick, it's funny that you say that. I think I'm with you in Lockstride. I feel like Mike Elko, and he's a great defensive coach, so like let him coach these guys however he wants. Like, guy's a mastermind. But it feels like, and I mean, every pass rush wants to do this. They want to rush with lane integrity, but at the same time, sometimes you watch those guys, and it's almost like special teams. We're like, I'm not going to leave this alley. Like, this is my alley. QB will not leave the pocket. And I do wonder how much of that then correlates to like, yeah, well, I couldn't get as creative as I wanted to get around the guy or whatever, or under the guy, because that it's a pressure. Shamar Stewart, 39 pressures to 1.5 sacks. How much of that would have changed? It's just something that I've been thinking about a lot. But do you see some of the sort of things? It kind of feels like almost special teams like, where it's just like lanes, keeping your lane.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. I think Elko prioritizes run defense more than pass rush. And it makes sense because in college level, they still run the ball as much, if not more than what they're passing. So that makes sense. And obviously when you're playing the run defense, you need to be more disciplined in your gaps, right? Whereas pass rushing, you could obviously just try to make something happen. So I think that does play a part in it. I think they do prioritize run defense. So like I said, they're more reading and reacting than actually, just telling them, hey, go get them, instead of that. So that, I think that could explain a lot why he and Stewart and Shamar Turner even, and some other guys on the D-line, maybe they didn't have the raw numbers that you would like for a first-round pick.
Yeah, no, and I swear I see it in some of the pass rush reps from them too, where it's just like 4 running in a straight line, and it's like, okay, well, the QB is not going to break the pocket, that's for sure. I also think there is something to be said about, like, if that is Elko's philosophy, like, you get a bad college quarterback, you get them under pressure and the job's done. Like, there are some college quarterbacks you don't need to take the ground; they will take it the rest of the way, So, I could see where that's a little bit of the philosophy. Anyways, to the Bills, it's another tough one, man. Derek Harmon next to Ed Oliver could be fun. I also like Darius Alexander a good bit. He's my IDL 5 right now. But then I'm also having a hard time passing on Green and Nezaraku still. We don't know what's going to happen with Von Miller long term. You know what? I'm going to go Ezeraku. I'm going to go Donovan Ezeraku. And I'm doing it over Mike Green, who I have ranked higher. But again, the off-the-field stuff's too much to figure out. And now you just have two guys with like pterodactyl wings for arms, and Greg Rousseau and Donovan Ezeraku. Like, let's go. Sign me up for that. So I'm going to have Ezeraku be our Von Miller replacement in Buffalo. But yeah, that's another one where if you said Derek Harmon there, I'd have been pumped up for that as well. But I love the Ezeraku hype. I feel like he's been a big-time riser of late. So let's get him in here in the first round.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I love that. All right, I'm going to go with Josh Simmons here to the Chiefs. I think he has a high ceiling as a pass blocker. I obviously, you saw how bad the O-line was in the Super Bowl. I think he would be a really, really good pick here for Kansas City that just needs more help on the offensive line. Maybe Kingsley Suamataia turns into a long-term starter. Didn't look great in his rookie year, but I think a guy like Josh Simmons, hopefully the medicals check out with him as well with his knee injury. But he or Josh Connerly, I think were the two guys I was really kind of looking at for this pick.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally with you there. I have Simmons just ahead of Connerly, but both of them make a lot of sense right now. And honestly, they make a lot of sense for the Eagles here at 32. And, Simmons' flexibility playing right tackle, that would have been tailor-made right here. Yeah, I do wonder if the Chiefs end up going to the free agent market like Cam Robinson or something like that. They've tried their hand at the draft, so I almost wonder if they go veteran route there. But again, you get flexibility with Simmons with right tackle experience. I was a big Suamataia guy, but the only thing that would make a bad pick worse is by trying to force that bad pick into a good one, So maybe that's, ultimately you move on from Juwan Taylor. He's making a lot of money. Maybe Josh Simmons is ultimately your fix there. So options aplenty for the Kansas City Chiefs. So then that takes us to Philadelphia Eagles. Man, Mike Green, it's like Howie Roseman. You can't keep getting away with this. This edge rusher that falls right into his lap. Derek Harmon's another one of these guys. That would be spicy. Darius Alexander in a lot of ways is kind of like your Milton Williams replacement. Can move all across the line, really athletic, quick hands. Like I could see that. Michael Williams, like good Lord, give them that multiple ball of clay. Or Josh Connerly and try to cross-train him over at right tackle. Oh, man. You left me with a tough one here. I'm going to go with Michael Williams, partially because he's a Georgia player and he falls in the first round. It's like the Howie Roseman formula through and through. Mike Green, again, the off-field stuff still to be figured out. Interior D-line, I think they're okay even with Williams leaving. I'm a big Moro Ojomo guy. I don't know why he fell so much in the draft. I was a big Ojomo fan. And I also think Cameron Williams in the second round is like a great Eagles tackle. Like draft and develop that guy in the second round.
Love that. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense for the Georgia connection, obviously, but I think it's a really fun fit for that Philly defense too. So that's great. All right.
We can fly through the second round. I know we're on some time constraints. I've kept you long.
No, you're good, brother. Yeah. You probably just go quick through the second round. I'm going to go with Josh Connerly. I think he is a guy that get Cam Moore some protection. That O-line was so bad at Cleveland this past year. I think Connerly here on the board, he's probably going to be a first-round pick. And if he's here at 33 overall, be a great pick to pair with Cam Ward.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100% of the way on that one. Just making sure I'm not missing anybody. I think Jaden Higgins or Alec Iovaner here. I'm gonna go with Iovaner. I like Higgins, and I think he had a good combine. I mean, 4.47, right? I think was his 40. That's a good time for him. But I'm gonna go with Iovaner. Have him be the prototypical X. Let's move Malik Neighbors around. Let's get creative there with Brian Dable and Shadur Sanders in the Big Apple.
Love that. All right, so I already took Abdul for the Titans. There's not really a quarterback I'm even remotely considering here. This is tough.
Here, I'll give you some options.
Yeah, I'm trying to look. Okay, I'm going to go. All right, I'm going to take the swing here. I'm going to take Benjamin Morrison. I got to find where he is.
Okay.
I'm just going to hope and pray that his medicals check out, because if he does, that's a top 20 pick in the draft. I think corner is another need for Tennessee. Yeah, I think this is a guy that if he didn't get hurt, he would have been up there with Travis Hunter and Will Johnson as the best corner, and Jahdae Barron's the best corners in the draft. And I just think that hip injury is worrisome, but if it checks out and he's all right, I mean, that's still, like I said, it's a top 15 to 20 talent that you got here at 34 overall. So that's a really, really good pick for Tennessee.
And the other thing about that is like it's almost shades of Caleb Farley. New regime for sure, but sometimes when a new regime comes in, I almost wonder if they're willing to do the same thing again. And sometimes they benefit from it because sometimes those propositions are 50-50 and it didn't work out with Farley. So I almost wonder if they do it with Morrison, what this time around it just works out. Don't always play that way. Jags, I'm going to go with Jaden Higgins. Let's go give Liam Cohen a Mike Evans type of receiver. And I think, honestly, top 40 is certainly live for Higgins now after the combine. He might be one of those guys that's a sneaky first round guy too, honestly. So big fan of both the Iowa State receivers. Got to talk to them both the Senior Bowl too. Super nice guys.
Love that. Yeah, they're both so good. So I'm a big fan of both of them. All right. We got Jinty already for Vegas.
Could go corner here.
Could go corner. Yeah, I was looking at corner. There was talk about Vegas really liking Jalen Milroe. I don't think they're gonna do it here. At 37, I think that's a little high still for QB3. Yeah, I'll go with the corner. I'll go with the guy who actually was awesome at the combine. Darian Porter, the Iowa State corner. He's what 6'3", runs like a 4.3. Was unreal in every other drill too. He's just a freak athlete. Press man corner, press zone cover corners. Have him in press coverage because he's got the length to bother receivers at the line of scrimmage and then the speed to keep up with them down the field too. I think Darian Porter is a big riser after the combine.
Totally. And I got to talk to him at the Senior Bowl too. I'm just all about this Iowa State program this year. But he was super, super nice and like freaky athlete. And he's the type of corner I can't quit. Like big athletic man press. Like, all right, you've got my number. Like it's there. I also think Patrick Graham, like really versatile defensive coordinator, mixed it up between man and zone and what type of zone. So he really fits into that, I think, really well. I mentioned this all the time on the show. His pick against Iowa on that tight end leak is like,
crazy.
He has less than 800 snaps at corner. You can't tell me he knew that was coming. That's just instincts. That's like knowing ball. So sign me up for Darian Porter. To the New England Patriots. Oh man, the Christian Barmore stuff going on. I'm kind of looking at, Harmon or Alexander here, but I'm going to go Mike Green. I'm going to say this is where the slide ends. He's a first round talent. From tape from the Senior Bowl. And if he had tested, I'm sure that would have been great other than an arm length, but it's just the off the field stuff. But, they trade Josh Uche mid-year. At the worst, he's an Uche replacement. So I like that fit there for New England.
Love that. Yeah. Again, it's the off field stuff with him. That's going to be interesting. But if it checks out, he's going to be a lot higher than that. So if it doesn't check out, then he's might not get drafted until very late.
What was the name of that Florida edge who just kept hurting himself? I can't think of his name. He just kept taking a stock. Ja'Kai
Polite, maybe?
Yeah, Ja'Kai Polite. Wow, holy cow. Great recall on you.
Didn't he go second round? I think he was like a second round pick, and then he
top of third, I think 70 overall to the Jets. Yeah.
70 overall, and then he got cut in his rookie
year. Yep. I'll talk to Kelvin about that one.
Third round pick getting cut before his rookie year even starts. It's like, dear God, man. That's just a kind of a opposite.
That makes Jermaine Burton blush somewhere. He's in a casino.
Yeah, no, Jermaine Burton looks like a Hall of Famer compared to that. Like, that's just the New York Jets in a nutshell right there, I guess. Yeah, but all right, Chicago here. I actually got Chicago twice in the next three picks. So it's be really interesting to see what they could do here. This is interesting. I think there's a couple guys on the board that it doesn't not be the biggest need for them. We took Will Campbell already for them, so they kind of helped out the offensive line. There's a couple guys on the board here it's really hard for me to pass up, and it's Harmon and Alexander. I'm going to go with Harmon here. Again, it's not the biggest need in Chicago. They needed edge probably more, but I really like these are two guys. Harmon and Alexander are two guys that are probably going to be first round picks. And if they're here on the board, I don't think D tackle's not a need, right? So I do think it's definitely something that they could look at in the early second round.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, Luxtrot. I was looking at those two guys and then Caleb Johnson. To me, like Caleb Johnson plus one of those two interiors, sign me up for that. Or you go edge, and there's still plenty of great edges. I'm going to give you that option now. As I'm going to go with Darius Alexander to the Saints. Like he's their guy, great tester. He's a little on the older side, but to me, he's move-in ready because of that. Quick hands, great feet, good testing at the combine. Big time Darius Alexander fan.
Love that. All right, I'm going to go a guy that I'm really high on in this edge class. And I know the
here we go.
Measurables aren't great, and I know you may not be the most athletic player. I love Jack Sawyer. I think he presents such a high floor as an edge rusher, as a run defender, and pass rusher. He was phenomenal each of the last 2 years. I might have him borderline as a first-round talent. So I think getting him and just help building up that defensive line. So I think Jack Sawyer, he and Derek Harmon can really help just turn around the defensive line right now.
Yeah, no, love that fit. Love that pairing. I think Azaria Thomas here could be interesting for the Jets, but I'm going to go interior defensive line. Oh, man. As fun as TJ Sanders would be, and don't get me wrong, that'd be really fun. I just think there's so much value to be gained by freeing up Quinnen Williams to almost just ignore the run game. And not that Tyleik Williams is like your one-stop, shop for stopping the run, but just let Quinnen Williams play 3-tech, pin his ears back, and go be a monster. So I'm going to get Tyleik Williams taking that one from the NFL SE latest 2-round mock draft they did. I think that'd be really fun to see Tyleik next to Quinnen Williams. Sign me up for that.
I think, it's an awesome point you just made, too, about Quinnen Williams just being able to free it up. Because, like you said, Tyleik Williams at Ohio State especially, like, he eats up, like, 2 blockers almost at all times, right? So, he's almost a guy that takes up 2 gaps in the run game. Like, he's just that good of a run defender. So, if you could let Quinnen Williams be fully unleashed even more, I mean, it'd be awesome for that New York Jets team.
I was going to give Alexander as like a John Franklin Myers. If he made it there, that could be kind of fun, too.
Yeah, I would have definitely done that if I was there. But between Tyleik and TJ Sanders, you can't really go wrong. I do love that thinking, though, of letting Quinnen just be, unleashed fully. All right, so I have San Fran here. Who do we took Calvin Banksy already for that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. See, like I know there's some people like, oh, they could take another O lineman, maybe Tyler Booker. The problem with Tyler Booker is he does not fit that scheme at all.
Yeah. And I don't even mean to make him fall this much, but he's just not a Shanahan guy, man. He's just
he can't. Like I think really. And he didn't test well at the combine at all. So if you're not running a gap heavy scheme, you should be off your board altogether. Like I don't think he could work anywhere else other than a gap heavy scheme. So I wouldn't take him here because I think it's just actually I think it's like the worst scheme fit possible for Tyler Booker. But some other guys, I think they did trade away Debo. So maybe adding a receiver is interesting. I'm going to go with TJ Sanders. I think TJ Sanders is a good player, and I think just helping out the interior defensive line would probably be something that they try to do here. So TJ Sanders, I think, would make a lot of sense for San Fran.
No, I think you're spot on. And it's San Francisco's D line and then Cleveland's offensive line. I think last year, like midway through the year, I had like a realization of like I'm just used to those units being really good, but they're really feast or famine. And actually, Cleveland's O line, they were just like not that great. But like for San Francisco, like Hargrave goes down. Now you have no interior production. And then Bosa battles injuries. And then when he's not out there, they have no edge rush. So it's like, I think TJ Sanders next to Javon Hargrave would be. Granted, it does sound like they're going to move on from him, cap savings. So this also could be a Javon Hargrave replacement. So kind of twofold there. All right, Dallas Cowboys. This is where I'm going to go Caleb Johnson. There are some receivers here that could be kind of interesting. No, I'm going to stick to my gut here. I'm going to go Caleb Johnson. He is still at the moment my RB3, but you know what? The more I watch Quinshaw Judkins, he might ultimately surpass Johnson, but I kind of see them in the same bucket. I see the top 2 guys as like in a tier of each of their own, and then you get to kind of tier 3 where Johnson and Judkins and Henderson are. But I'm gonna go with Caleb Johnson there. I actually think that kind of works well with Rico Dowdle, who kind of stepped up and became a solid pass catching guy for them, which I don't know if you're gonna get a whole lot of that out of Caleb Johnson at the next level. So I think that's a nice little duo there in the backfield. Yeah,
and I think the one thing with Caleb Johnson as a receiver, I think he can be a good one. It's just Iowa's passing game is so freaking horrible that like
that's true too. Yeah,
that's another thing. But like you're right. Like I think it's wide open. I'm with you. The first 2 are pretty clear, at least for me. And then after that, it's pretty wide open. So Judkins, his combine was way better than I thought it was going to be. So he might end up being RB3 for
me. 220 running 4.4, like good.
Dude, I did not think he had that kind of speed. I mean, if you're a Notre Dame fan, so you know like that play where he was hawked down by Leonard Moore, and Leonard Moore, the guy we'll talk about. Like I was like, okay, he's gonna run the 4.5s probably, and like, I know 4.48 is not that far off from what I thought he was gonna run, but like I would not have been surprised if he ran a 4.6. So 4.48 is a phenomenal time for Quinshaw Judkins, I thought.
And it helps me make sense because there's some times where like he's got a stiff arm from hell, dude. Like the stiff arm's crazy. But there's also times where he'll just like bounce off of guys or have dudes bounce off of him, and I don't think his lower leg drive is really anything crazy. But like now it makes sense. Like he's running at a fast enough speed where dudes are just kind of like bouncing off him a little bit. So I found that to be a little interesting too. So I was like, all right, that's kind of where that comes from. He's just a better athlete than I thought. Anyways, not to belabor the point. You're back on the clock with the Colts.
Yeah, so we took Jahdae Barron already. It would have been really fun. I almost thought about taking Xavier Watts here too.
Sign me up.
Or man, frick, I could take Kevin Winston. That could be fun.
Sorry, I went to tight end.
I'm thinking about an edge rusher here too.
Sure.
They do need safeties too. I don't think it's just corner.
So if you go Watts though, Do you think Nick Cross can play in the box?
Yeah, that's a problem. I think
Nick Cross is a strong safety. Yeah, I mean a free safety. Sorry.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go Kevin Winston then. I'm gonna go Kevin Winston.
Oh, let's go. Let's freaking go.
I think that's like I said, dude. I am still so freaking. Hot take. I think I'm gonna have Kevin Winston Jr. as my number 2 safety in the draft. I am so high on him. My hottest take might be I think Kevin Winston Jr. is closer to safety 1 than he is to safety 3. I just think, dude, his portion torn ACL robbed him this year. I don't think that'll really affect him. Everything. So I've talked to some Penn State people, and they told me he could have played on it, and then got surgery after, which would have kind of screwed him for his rookie mini camp and a whole pre-draft process, and then maybe even a little bit in his rookie year. Instead, what he did was get surgery on it immediately, and then hopefully he could be, fully good to go for his rookie year. So to me, that sounds like, okay, it wasn't that bad that he needed surgery immediately. Like, it was a partially torn ACL, not a completely torn ACL. He could have played on it if he wanted to. He instead decided to get surgery on it immediately. That way he could be ready for his rookie year. Don't blame him at all for that at all. But I think, like I said, if that didn't happen, we talk about him as maybe a top 20 pick in the draft. And Indianapolis, again, he's going to go lower than this. I think he's going to be a 3rd-round pick, which I don't agree with. Yeah. But in Indy, man, with Jahdae Barron and Kevin Winston Jr., good Lord. I mean, you're talking about a secondary that's one of the worst in the NFL. You might have turned around overnight with those two right there.
100%. And dude, like I said, I don't really love the E-Man Warrior tape. I think it's good. I see the building blocks, but Winston's 2023 tape is better than E-Man Warrior's 2024, at least of what I've watched. The 4 games.
Probably better than Malachi Starks' tape too, man. It's legit.
It's better than Starks this year for sure. Yeah, definitely.
I think there's when Connor preseason had him safety 1, and people were shocked by it. I'm like, I don't think it's that far off, bro. I think the whole again, if he didn't get hurt, I really think we'd have a 3-horse race for safety 1 in this draft between Starks and Warrior, and then Kevin Winston Jr.
No, I'm with you fully. All right, so then we get to the Falcons here at 46, and I mentioned earlier Jahdae Barron plus Braden Swinson, that would be ideal to me, that would be perfect. So I'm just basically going to do the inverse here, but it's going to come down to Trey Amos versus Maxwell Hairston and Azareye'h Thomas. I don't know. Raheem Morris is such a zone-heavy guy, a lot of cover 3, a lot of cover 4. I like Azareye'h Thomas, but I kind of worry about what the projection there might look like. Amos has gotten better in zone, but man, dude, Hairston 4.28 speed and his click and close ability. Yeah, I think I almost kind of have to do that. Again, I think Amos, I can say this certainly, actually. Amos and Azareye'h are ranked higher for me than Hairston, but I think for the Atlanta Falcons fit, Hairston would be the guy. Get the ball skills, get the click and close, get the long speed. I think that would be their guy.
Yes. I like it. Great athlete. I hate being the doom and gloom guy in this podcast. He's another guy that has off-field concerns. Nothing's happened with that, but we'll see. But talent-wise, yeah, absolutely. This is definitely a guy that's worth. It's just you got to figure out him and Mike Green are the 2 big ones right now. It's what's going on with those 2? But yeah, I mean, off-field aside, that is a great fit for that defense. Absolutely. All right, got Atlanta. Who did we take for Atlanta? We took Pierce. Oh, you took Pierce. I'm sorry, you took Hairston.
Hairston, yeah, you're on the clock at 47 with Arizona.
Sorry, yeah, I was kind of going through. All right, Kenneth Grant was the pick. So, is there an O lineman here that I like? Let's see.
Donovan Jackson, reunited with Justin Fry.
Dude, I really think that might be the pick. I think it's a good call by you. Yeah, I think I'm going to do it. I'm going to take Donovan Jackson. I think he's better than Tyler Booker. I really do. He played tackle for Ohio State. He actually held up at tackle. Now, he will not play tackle in the NFL, but he held up there. I think he's a really, really solid all-around player for Ohio State. As guard, I think Donovan Jackson's just going to be a good pro. I don't think he's going to be a superstar or anything like that, but just provide stability on that offensive line. I think will be an immediate starting guard for Arizona for a very long time, I think.
Yeah, and this is one of those things where, between him and honestly, Booker and Jackson, to your point, I've always been high on Jackson. I've a couple of years now been kind of waiting for him to declare, and former 5-star recruit. I'm talking to the right half of the PFF College Football Show when it comes to 5-star recruits. So, yeah, I'm dude, there is special in there. And I think this year we started to figure it out with Ohio State. Then you get the Simmons injury. That throws a wrench in it. But, yeah, I think the continuity there with Fry being his offensive line coach, I think that might ultimately give him the leg up over someone like a Tyler Booker, who I see pretty closely. But to your point, though, I had my notes for Booker, okay athlete. And then you go out to the combine, and it's no, he's not even that.
No, dude, it's a middle athlete. He's very scheme limited. That's the thing with him. So, but Donovan, to what we're saying before,
great mover.
If you look, yeah, he's a great mover. And dude, if you ask me to like name like the 3 or 4 most important players for Ohio's national title run, he's probably in there. Like I don't think they could win a national title without Donovan Jackson, which might sound crazy to say like for a left guard. He legitimately stabilized an offensive line that looked horrible. When Simmons went down and then McLaughlin went down, Jackson not only played out of position at left tackle and held up against some elite edge rushers like James Pierce Jr. at Tennessee, all the guys there at Oregon as well. Texas with Colin Simmons and Trey Moore, and then obviously Notre Dame in the national title game. He held up there at a position he should not be playing, and also he's a veteran leader of an offensive line that did not have a lot of experience, right? Because of just so many guys being thrust in there in the biggest spots. So yeah, Will Howard and Jeremiah Smith and Jack Sawyer and all these guys get all the praise, but do not forget about Donovan Jackson, man, because he legitimately, if they did not have Donovan Jackson in that offensive line, they might have been screwed, and they probably would have lost one of those playoff games.
Oh, dude, if you're talking about most important Buckeyes, I don't think either one of the running backs is on. If we're just talking top 5, I think Chip Kelly's on there before the 2 running backs. I would put Donovan Jackson ahead of those 2 running backs. And then, yeah, how much credit do you want to give to Will Howard? How much do you want to give, to Jeremiah Smith? That becomes a different question, but I think that's a great point. And I mean, it's nothing against the backs. They're awesome. But honestly, Chip Kelly and you and Dalton did a great job breaking it down. But like the change going into the college football playoff, what a time to go do that. But that's why they won the Natty. They did enough changes. They tweaked it in a way that made the most sense for the 5 they had, and they get a title because of it. And, $20+ million roster helps too. But I'm not a vengeful Notre Dame fan. It's okay. Anyways, to the Dolphins, I'm gonna phone in a friend here. Max, what would you do? Alfred Collins or Ariante Ursary here for the Dolphins?
Oh,
I don't know if I'm ready to give up on Patrick Paul, but at the same time, it wasn't great his rookie year. Ursary also could play guard. He'd be a big freaking guard, but like you could do that. Alfred Collins, dude, up and down the line though, he's just a run defender. That
would be really. I would go Ursary. I think he fits the zone scheme really well too, and also because like I just cannot see. And I didn't do it. I might have screwed you here at the first round because I took Malachi Starks. I cannot see them leaving the second round of the draft without at least one offensive lineman. Considering if Armstead leaves, especially like they are really desperate O line. So I think I'll go Ursary here, but Alfred Collins is very tempting for sure.
Cool. Ursary's the pick. I do wonder if Armstead doesn't play, does that money then go to Holland? I do wonder what the financials are there. How could they move that around? Because I do think, like, dude, at 13, if you told me this became Walter Nolan and Ariante Ursary, I know you're not as high on Nolan as I am, but if this became Nolan and Ursary instead of you having to draft a safety at 13, that sounds way more appealing, And then you already have Javon Allen there. So
exactly, yeah, you have that, and then you could have, hell, like I said, if Banks was there at 13, I would have sprinted the car.
Right. And then here at 48, you're going TJ Sanders or someone of that ilk. Yeah.
Yeah, like Membu or Banks too. I'm like, dude, if they get there, oh man, that you could do damage with those two. So yeah, that'd be really good. All right, I got
the Bengals.
All right, so I think Bengals fans probably would kill me if I didn't take a lineman here because they were like, dude, Luther Burden's fun, yeah, but my God, we had to fix this defense. There's a few guys I like here. I like Xavier Watts in this defense a lot. Get him.
Al Golden.
Get back with Al Golden. You're right. I think Jack Kaiser's a guy that they're going to target later on in the draft too. Definitely. I do think defensive lines are pretty big need. So I'm going to go Xavier Watts would be so fun though in this defense. Man, screw it. I'm going Xavier Watts. I think Xavier Watts.
We'll do it.
I'm doing Xavier Watts.
Played with the safety position lately, so
yeah, they do need help with safety. Since Jesse Bates left for the Falcons, they haven't really been great there. And obviously the Al Golden connection as well. I think that'll play a part. And like just as a true center fielder for the Bengals, would be really valuable. Again, the D line they need to fix, but it is a deep D line class, both a D tackle and edge. So I think they could get guys later on. But yeah, I think Xavier Watts would be a fit, especially with Al Golden there. Especially, I think that'd be really, really a good fit.
Yeah, no, like I'm fairly certain. I mean, it's easy for me to say this, but like there are 2 Notre Dame players I'm almost certain are going to be Bengals next year. Jack Kaiser. It's going to be like Junior Colson going to LA with Jesse Minter. I think it's going to be very similar there. Probably in the 4th round, maybe not the 3rd. And I think RJ Oben, like hearing him talk about working with Al Golden, I think that's a guy too that and you could probably get him on 4th, 6th round, maybe 5th round. Yeah. So I think you get him in the 5th round and add to that group. So it could be fun. But Xavier Watts, they're the pick at 49. I like it. Seattle Seahawks. I'm going to go with another South Carolina player. I'm going to go with Demetrius Knight Jr. That's a linebacker. And I thought about Jahad Campbell at 18. But if you can't get him to get Demetrius Knight 32 spots later, I mean, I love it. Sideline to sideline speed. He's a monster going downhill too. Big fan of Demetrius Knight. Also a guy at the Senior Bowl that every time he made contact with someone, there was a pop. I don't know how he does it, but this guy can hit. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Love that. All right, I'm going to go with Tampa Bay here. Thought about Trey Amos. I'm going to go with his teammate, though, in Princely Monmouth. Not a great Senior Bowl. Honestly, you forget he's there a lot when we were there in Mobile. I don't know about you, but, other than that, I just think the tape was so good at Ole Miss this past year. And he's been a really good pass rusher at Florida even before that. So the measurables aren't great. The Senior Bowl wasn't great, but I still think he's a very good football player. And I think for a Tampa Bay defense that needs help, he would actually fit this defense pretty well as a 3-4, stand-up outside linebacker. So I think Oman Mielen would be a good fit here. And I still think even after the Senior Bowl and even after like an underwhelming combine too, I still think he's a very good football player.
Yeah, I think he played a little. I think he gained too much weight for the Senior Bowl.
Agreed.
And, I mean, he looked better in team drills against the run, but then you didn't see any of that first step burst that's there on his tape at Florida and at Ole Miss. So, and even the 40 wasn't great, but the broad and the vertical, those testing numbers showcase, okay, there's the first step juice that I see on tape. There it is. So I still like Oman Mielen. I've liked him for a few years now. He's just one of these guys that I don't want to overthink it. The guy just wins, as a pass rusher. If you need to figure out some other stuff there, can he play on rundowns? Okay. But worst comes to worst, he's kind of like this unique Ngakoue type for me that I could just see kind of living in the league for long enough, making some good money and being a mercenary. So then we get to the Denver Broncos at 52. We've gone Colston, Loveland. Safety here is interesting to me. Brandon Jones, good player. PJ Locke, not so much. So I do wonder. I don't really love the value of any of the guys, though. That's the tough part.
Yeah.
Castro is a fine nickel. I think you're fine with McMillan there. I think Jonas Sanker, that's a day 3 guy. Bowman slot, Upton Stout slot. You know what? In that case, I'm going to go with my boy Carson Schlesinger. I'm a big Schlesinger guy, and this guy can just trigger downhill. He is a heat-seeking missile with football. And I do think that linebacking core in Denver can get better. And because of how quick he can trigger downhill, I do think Vance Joseph would get some use out of him as a blitzer, too. And he likes to blitz from the inside. So I think that's a good scheme fit there.
I love that. Yeah, I was thinking about Jack Besh for them too, but also it might be a little repetitive considering the role Colston Love is going to play in offense. So I think that'd be a little repetitive to like what they would do with Loveland. So I love that though. Schlesinger's a really good player, and I think he'd be a good fit there. All right, for our Steelers here at 53, I'm going to take Trey Amos, the corner from Ole Miss. I'm going to stop his slide right here. I think he's a really good player. I'm not as high on him as maybe Trevor or some other guys, but I just think, if you come out of the draft for the Steelers, at least the second round with Emeka Egbuka and Trey Amos, like 2 of your biggest needs, probably outside of quarterback. But I wouldn't take a quarterback probably at this point. I think those are 2 guys that are going to be, plug and play for the Steelers immediately, and it could really help them continue their playoff streak right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Amos comes into the question at 21, so let alone 53.
Yeah.
I mean, 21. There we go. All right, Chargers next up. This is kind of a team I've kind of told myself they're going to draft Josiah Stewart in the 3rd round for, so I'm going to ignore edge right now. I'm kind of looking at receiver. This would have been a great spot for Jaden Higgins if we could have made it happen. Besh feels a little redundant, but I don't know. Ladd can play inside and out, so you could go Besh, get a sure-handed guy in there, good body contortionist. I'm not the world's biggest Trey Harris fan, but could convince me that's an interesting route. Torrey Horton as well. This is a tough one. You could also go interior defensive line. Maybe that's what I'll do. Poona Ford, pending free agent. No guarantee they bring him back. I'll go with Alfred Collins. I'll go with Alfred Collins as like a Poona Ford contingency placement there.
Yeah, Jim Harbaugh's going to love his tape. That's a guy who just eats up defenders.
The first 2 picks, running back, and then a dude who's like a bona fide high-level run defender the next level. Yeah, this is Jim Harbaugh.
This is Jim Harbaugh. This is the Jim Harbaugh draft. Like you did a great job getting in the mind of Jim Harbaugh. Those 2 picks right there.
I like to live in his mindset, actually.
I don't know if I can
do myself 24/7.
All right, Green Bay. We took Matthew Golden. The news of Jair Alexander is concerning. I'll say that. So if they don't have Jair Alexander anymore, they have a desperate need at corner. So
you think Azaria here?
I would do it because I think they played a lot more zone under Hafley this past year.
I think by necessity.
Yeah, I think at his core and what he did at Boston College, they played more man coverage, I believe, than anyone else in the country.
Yeah.
So if he gets back to his roots a little bit, I wonder if he just trying to change it up because he had Jair Alexander and maybe the personnel fit more of a zone heavy scheme. But if you're gonna stick with the zone heavy scheme, I would not take Azareye'h Thomas here because I think he's a guy that you want in a very man heavy scheme. But if you're going to go back to what you did before, I think he would be a home run pick here for Green Bay here at 55. So I would take Azareye'h Thomas with the idea of Halfley getting back to his roots, maybe with Jair maybe getting traded away. You get maybe a more press heavy scheme or man heavy scheme. I think Azareye'h Thomas would be the perfect fit for that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you in Locke's right. I also think Eric Stokes might benefit from going to a more man heavy defense. Yeah. I'm also just not a huge Eric Stokes guy, so that is what it is. But I do think Jair is going to be gone, and if like you said, if he's going to get back to man coverage, Halfley's going to be hard pressed to find a guy that better fits that than Azareye'h. That's really just kind of Florida State's MO now, just like man coverage. Let's go.
I think it's a top. I'm putting it on my big board pretty soon. I think he might be a top 40 player for me. I think it obviously he's scheme dependent, like we said before, but if you run that scheme, this guy's a really good player. So I think he could be. If you run a man heavy scheme, I would not be shocked if he's a top 35, top 40, maybe even back half of the first round pick. I think he, in a man heavy defense, he could be a really, really good player.
Just checked my big board. I have Amos at 40, Azareye'h Thomas at 41, kind of clustered together.
Yeah, exactly. Probably exactly what would happen.
Yeah. And no, I'm with you. It's hard not to like his tape.
Yeah.
Oh, Buffalo Bills. Why isn't Kevin Winston Jr. available? That would have been fit. I kind of want to go Jack Besh, man, because I do think there's something to be gained there. But predominantly going to be someone who plays in the slot. Majority of his snaps at TCU were out wide, but I just don't know. I don't know if he's enough of an athlete to be outside, out wide consistently. When did the Bills pick again? They pick again in the second round. All right. I think I have a receiver in mind I might go with there.
Okay.
That is Jack Besh. So I'm going to pass on Besh here. We went edge. We could go interior defensive line. I still think that's a good unit that could use some bolstering. The problem is, honestly, this is the Alfred Collins team because you can't have Omar Norman Lott next to Ed Oliver. You can't do that. Shamar Turner is kind of a work in progress. I like Turner, but I'm kind of the third round guy on him right now. Shoot. What do I want to do with Buffalo here? Holy shit. Tyler Booker's still here. Could go Tyler Booker. Who's playing left guard for them right now?
Ooh,
Cyrus Torrance plays right guard here. Let me pull up the Bills depth chart real quick. Here we go. Podcasting on the fly.
Oh, David Edwards. Yeah, Booker could be a fit here.
Let's go with Booker. This is kind of just like BPA. Again, Booker's not. I'm not super high on Booker. Let's go back to my big board. He is 29 for me on my big board. But again, kind of understanding that he's a gap fit. It's easy to make a big board when you're doing it for all 32 teams and you don't have a scheme in place. So, Booker. We're going to have him come off the board here. I think it's just simply too good a value. So he goes to the Buffalo Bills at 56.
Love that.
Would have been a good fit there for Houston. Sorry, dude.
I know. I was literally just going to say that. I think that would have been a really, really fun fit in Houston. Probably was the guy I was actually going to go with in Houston. They're so desperate on the interior line.
Yeah.
And
Willie Lampkin. No, I'm playing.
Yeah, dude. I don't tell me the good time there. I'm looking at the top two guys, the two Georgia guys. I think both Ratledge and Jared Wilson were phenomenal at the combine. And I'm gonna go with Ratledge. I think Ratledge he shocked me with how good of a athlete he was. He's been an elite pass blocker almost his entire career. I think, like I said, I was floored by how good of an athlete he tested out as the combine. So I'm going to go Tate Ratledge here. They need to get help on the interior line, and either him or Jared Wilson would be a really good fit here. But I think I'm going to go with Ratledge because I loved his tape for the last few years now. And like I said, I did not anticipate him being that good of an athlete at the combine, and he tested out legitimately as one of the most athletic players at the combine. So that kind of surprised me, and I think it could be a second-round pick because of it.
Yeah, I see him as a second rounder. You took the words in my mouth. I don't know what's unpopular about the Georgia interior trio. I like all three. I see Ratledge as a second round guy. Wilson, especially after his testing. If you want to take a shot on him late second, I'm cool with that. And I don't think Dylan Fairchild's bad. Like, if you want to take him on day 3, early day 3, I'm totally content with that. Maybe even late day 3, or sorry, late day 2.
Yeah.
I like all of them. So I did also want to throw in Marcus Bowe. He could have been an option there.
Oh yeah, that's not a bad call. Yeah.
I see him more as a center though, and I think they're content with their centers. So that comes down to ultimately how they shuffle the interior trio, and then where do you see Bowe? All right, Carolina Panthers. They went Will Johnson. It's going to be edge for me here. It's just going to come down to which edge guy: Jordan Birch, JTT, Landon Jackson, or Braden Swinson. You got a favorite of that bunch?
Carolina is tough. I want a pass rusher. So Landon Jackson, I don't really think.
Yeah, I know.
Solves what they need. But he is my favorite out of the ones right there. But
I think same thing with JTT too. Like, high level run defender right away. I think I'm leaning Swinson.
I don't hate it.
I like Birch though. I do like Birch. I'm gonna go Swinson.
Swinson was outstanding as a pass rusher this past year, so that would not be a bad pick at all in my opinion. And Birch too is a little more of a run defender than pass rusher because he's so big.
Yeah.
It's tough. I think it's tough. Again, I like Landon Jackson probably the most out of those guys, but I think in terms of who fits Carolina, who they need the most, they probably need a Braden Swinson more than a Landon Jackson.
Yeah, and I mean, again, TBD on what he's going to be as a run defender, but 250 pounds, good first step, really long arms, and he's got great closing speed. He's just got a natural ability to flatten and go get a quarterback. And right now, like, who is that guy in Carolina?
Yeah.
Do you want him? Not him. So, anyways, on to 59 with the Baltimore Ravens.
All right, 59 with the Ravens. We took Shamar Stewart to them. All right, this is pretty simple for me. I'm going to go with Jack Besh. I think
damn it.
Yeah, I was like, this is just a guy that's fallen further than probably should have. And wide receiver still a need in Baltimore. I just love this fit in the Ravens offense. So getting him alongside Zay Flowers. I mean, Rashad Bateman looked a lot better this past year than he's been in his entire career too. So maybe you get something out of him. And I just think he's a good football player. And it maybe the fit with Zay Flowers will be a little funky, but I think both of them could be really good players in this offense. Just surround Lamar Jackson with as many weapons as possible, and that's probably a good thing for Baltimore. Yeah,
and like a willing blocker too. He just matches up with everything. That's why as soon as we got to the Ravens, I was like, oh no, damn it, I've done it. I have become the person. Like everyone says it with the Eagles, they can't keep getting away with it, but the Ravens are very much in that same ilk in my eyes. Detroit Lions is where I'm gonna have Landon Jackson come off the board, so that kind of worked out perfectly for us. He's got also like pretty good testing numbers. Like I did not see, especially the Senior Bowl, right? Like I saw him in the Senior Bowl and I was like, yeah, he's big and he moves well for that size, but like really good run defender, TBD as a pass rusher. Even in the one-on-ones, you're still kind of waiting to see him. And then he puts up sick numbers testing-wise, and you're like, oh, well, where's that been? Could have used that on the pass rush tape, but kind of gives you an opportunity to draft him, and you know he's going to be productive. You can get him on the field, and then you just kind of figure out what you're going to get out of him as a pass rusher with some time. So I like Landon Jackson paired up there with Aiden Hutchinson in Detroit.
Love that. All right, Washington here, or it's like an edge with them. I'm going to go with Ozzie Drapilo, the tackle from
nice. I like it.
College. Yeah, really good player. I think he's really moving up boards lately. I think he could work in a gap or zone scheme, probably more of a gap, though, is where I like him in, but really good pass blocker, too. Just someone to protect Jaden Daniels. I think Ozzie Drapilo could be a good player here for Washington at 61.
Yeah, not a name you see enough in second-round mocks, to be honest with you, because, like, his tape's just better than Cameron Williams. Like the fact of the matter is, like Williams has the tools and the traits, but Trapilo is the better football player right now. So
right,
love that. Let's get to the Buffalo Bills then. I was thinking of a receiver. I think it was gonna be Besh. No, was it? Yeah, I think it was gonna be Besh. Yeah, I think that's what I was thinking of myself. Oh, you know what it actually was? Do I want to do Jalen Royals here? I like Royals, but I don't know if I like him at 62 enough. But I think he had a good 40. And there's something about him that is kind of Amari Cooper-like, that he's just so smooth and fluid that you kind of forget about everything else. I don't know. He might also be a slot only at the next level, too. That's kind of the struggle here. What do you think about Royals? Do you think it's too rich for him?
I'm gonna be lower on him on my personal big board, but I understand why people like him this high. So I wouldn't hate it if you took him here.
I'm gonna go with Pooh-Paul. One, because of the name. That's one of the biggest wins of the combine. Chris Paul, no longer Chris Paul. He's Pooh-Paul. We got enough Chris Pauls in the world. So Pooh-Paul. I also think sideline to sideline, Buffalo's gotten thinner and thinner over the last couple of years at linebacker with Milano injuries. Can't think of the guy's name off top, but he signed with Seattle last offseason. So I think it could be a position they look to add at somewhere around this range. And it's kind of emerged into a pretty solid linebacker group. And I like Pooh Powell. So I like that fit there in Buffalo.
Yeah, love that. This is tough. I'm going to go with JT Tuimoloau from Ohio State. I think, doubling up in Ohio State for Kansas City after getting Josh Simmons. Good run defender, really good run defender. And a pretty good pass rusher too. So I think getting him in Kansas City, hopefully you just add more to that edge room that it doesn't really have a true difference maker at edge. I don't think JT will be that, but just adding more guys to that room is probably a smart thing to do. So I think JT here at 63 would be pretty good value.
Well, that brings us to the last pick. A couple of guys I'll just rattle off real quick. I wish we could have gotten the second round here. Some of the running backs like Judkins would have been fun to get in here. I feel like I owe a personal apology letter to Elijah Arroyo and Mason Taylor. I like both those guys, and I don't know how I didn't find a home for them somewhere in this mock. I guess I was just a little biased against the tight ends. I think Mason Taylor to the Colts, honestly, like if we could have made that happen, that would have been fun. That would have been a fun one. And you would have saved me my Kevin Winston Jr., so it's okay. But I feel like I've already telegraphed what I'm going to do here. As much as also Marcus Bowe, Jonas Savanaia, I think other guys that could have been in the first, this first two rounds. Royals maybe end of the second. Wyatt Milam end of the second, another guy that could have snuck in there. Josh Farmer, I kind of like. But I'm going to go with Cameron Williams here. It's just one of these things that he's not there yet. Like I said, he's raw. He's a one-year starter, and he's got a ton of penalties under his belt. And, he's got one of the roughest losses of college football this last year with the, strip sack from Jack Sawyer. So he's still a work in progress, but what place better to send a work in progress than the Philadelphia Eagles to let Jeff Stoutland kind of coach him up. And also you don't need him to play in the next year or two because you still have Lane Johnson. So that puts a bow in this 2-round mock draft. I'm scrolling through so the viewers can go ahead and see each and every pick one more time. All 64 of them. Max Chadwick, man, I really appreciate you taking the time and joining us today. Where can the people find your work?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate having me on. It's all on the PFF College Football Show. I'm also on the PFF NFL Show now a good amount. And obviously you can follow me at CFB Max Chadwick on Twitter too. Awesome. Well, Max, like I said, thank you again, man. I really appreciate it. It was great to talk to you at the Senior Bowl. I love what you guys do at PFF. I was going to tell you this off the air, but I think this is fine to leave on there too. But I really appreciate everyone wants to, knock PFF and, it's not perfect and their grades are, whatever. But it's like, one, you do it then. I'd like to see you come up with a system that's better than PFF. But secondly, even if it's not necessarily like the perfect science, I think you guys strive to make it better. I was also a data collector for 2 years, so I am a little biased here. But I think, have you ever watched the show For All Mankind? Does that mean anything to you? I've heard of it. I've never actually sat down and watched it. But okay, it's a great show. Highly recommend it. It's on Apple TV Plus. It's my favorite show of all time. But there's this scene early on in the show between this like mentor-mentee figure, and the mentor is like reminiscing on old times with this mentee. And was like, I remember when I first taught you physics and I correlated it to music. And like, it was like the world opened up and you could see the invisible lines that pull the universe together. That's kind of how I see PFF. I think that's the context y'all have added to football, really. Because there's just so much that like, it's not enough to say this quarterback sucks. Well, is he bad against pressure? Is he bad in, a stable situation? Is he okay from a clean pot? Let's add some more nuance. What are these invisible lines that kind of pull the game together? So I really appreciate all the work you guys do. Simply put, makes my life easier, and it adds to the football discussion. I feel like we're getting more intellectual. We're getting into the real weeds and the nuts and bolts of what makes football. It means the world to me, honestly. But yeah, I mean, that's what we're trying to do at PFF. Is just trying to, get more into the weeds, right? Because we are a football-only company, so we're obviously want to cover it as in-depth as humanly possible. So instead of just talking about, is Patrick Mahomes one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time? Is he better than Brady? Like, we want to get more in depth than ever. So, I really appreciate that, man. That's kind of what our goal is. And yeah, the system is not perfect. The grades will never be perfect. But I think all the numbers that we have at PFF that you could find with a PFF Plus subscription, they kind of help contextualize a player and teams more so than raw passing yards, passing touchdowns, interceptions, like games started for offensive line. Yeah, exactly. Those numbers can be very skewed by a lot of external factors. I think our grades and our metrics, I think, help tell more of a better picture of who a player and who a team actually is. 100%. I couldn't agree more.
Max, I appreciate you again coming on, man. I hope to get you back on the show. I know this was 2 hours. This is probably more than you thought you were getting into today. So I appreciate you taking the time, but I'd love to have you back on, man, whether it's talking about your big board or getting you on for another mock, or we could even talk after the draft, kind of landing spots and your favorite fits. So I'll be in touch and we'll do that. We don't need to do that. Planning the pod on the air. I feel like Connor Rogers and Trevor Sickman here, but
anyway. Oh, dude, anytime, man. I really enjoyed meeting you at the Senior Bowl, man. I'm excited to do more with you.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, for Max Chadwick, my name's CJ Wingert. Let us know your thoughts on this 2-round mock draft down below in the comments or on Twitter at Action. You can reply back to the post. I'll try to respond to as many of those comments as possible. But until next time, we are signing off.